For an approval of the agenda with one minor change in our minutes. In the consent agenda from October 10th, we had asked for ex parte. There was no ex parte, but it went in the minutes as we all said aye instead of nay. So it has not been corrected in your packet. It has been corrected in our records for the city. With that one note on the record, do I have a motion?
Items 6 and 7.
Items 6 and 7. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions from the motion on the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. I'd like to invite Pastor Stephen Wilson from the First Baptist Church of Newberry to give tonight's invocation. If you would, please rise for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor Wilkins, it's nice to meet you. Welcome to Newberry.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we just are grateful, Lord, that we can even gather here, that you are a good God, a merciful God, a just God. And so as we gather here to discuss the affairs of our town, of our surrounding community, I pray, Lord, that we act justly and act wisely, that we lean wholly on your word and lean not on our own understanding. And that, God, in everything we say, everything we think, everything we do so in a manner that glorifies you, that lifts you up, and that brings honor to your name, and how we love one another, and how we are good stewards of the resources you have given us, and how we just and magnify and act justly and serve wisely. And so that is my prayer during this meeting, that we always keep in mind who we are in you, the image you have created us in, and we walk accordingly. Thank you, God, for all the blessings you continue to bestow, and continue to be among us and help us act wisely in these coming moments. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hoorah! Thank you, Pastor Wilson. We appreciate you. That's going to take us to our first presentation. I think this is our project manager. There he is, Mr. Lowry tonight. Welcome, sir. Tell us about Teens Work Alachua County.
Yes, sir. Make sure this thing's on. All right. Are we ready? Okay. Good afternoon, or good evening, board. Glad to be here tonight to make this presentation of Teens Work of Alachua County that the city of Newberry participated in this past summer, and we had about 8 students that participated. Some of them were at Easton, some of them were at Little Red Schoolhouse, and also we had one of those students who eventually ended up at the maintenance yard, and she did an excellent job to the point that she was recommended for employment. And so we received, and I'm going to put it up on the screen so everybody can see it, we received a certificate from the Children's Trust of Alachua County, also working along with Goodwill. And so we received that. I actually have it here. I'm going to pass it around so you can actually see it. And in the meantime, I'm going to invite Ms. Riley Copty, who is now an official employee of the city of Newberry as a result of Teens Work Alachua.
Thank you.
And she's gainfully employed. She's also a senior at the University of Florida, dual enrolled.
I'm at Santa Fe College.
Well, tell them. You tell for yourself.
Mr. Marlowe would know, but I'm a Newberry High School student. I'm a senior there, but I do full-time dual enrollment with Santa Fe, and right now I'm working on getting my degree in developmental psychology.
Amen. All right.
I could have told you she'd be a good one, and now that I know she's gainfully employed, I know who to come to for a loan. All
right. So thank you so much for allowing her to be employed and also to be here tonight as we celebrate her and as we celebrate our cooperative effort with the Teens Trust, what's that? Get into my head. Teens Work and also the Children's Trust of Alachua County. And they're going to continue this on next year, and we hope to participate again on next year. Okay? Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Congratulations, Riley. Thank you for continuing to make Newberry look good. Well done. What a great program. All right, and I think Mr. Assistant Manager, Jamie, you're going to come up and tell us about the cloud-based cemetery software.
Yes, sir.
I'm excited about this. I know I shouldn't be excited, but I'm excited about this one.
Mr. Mayor, I actually am not the expert on this. A couple of my staff members, Marina Hull and Tamano Dean, are going to present. It's a project they've worked very hard on. It will improve the level of service to citizens and ease some of the administrative burden of selling the lots and maintaining the database. And coincidentally, that's what Riley's gainfully employed with, is turning all those paper documents into this cloud-based database. So with that, I'll let Marina Hull and Tamano come walk you through the Simplify software.
Don't be shy. Come on down.
Oh,
Now, we introduced two people, but only
She's
one
not
came
shy.
down.
No.
All right. Another Newberry High graduate.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
All right.
Hello, hello, Mayor, Commissioners. Some of you may know me, some of you don't, but I'm Marina Hull. I work for Jamie. And yes, I'm here to talk about our new Semify cloud-based cemetery software.
Have you got a clicker?
Oh,
You advance
yeah.
that.
That, yes. One, two,
All the
three.
people in the cemetery are very patient.
Here we go. Here we go. You're good. You're good. No, they're very nice. So here's a beautiful image that Sierra took of our cemetery, and we're gonna click on over. Okay. So Semify was brought into the picture to help alleviate some of the time that the citizens and families had to go through while, in the process of grieving or preparing for a possible loss. And it's a public records portal specifically for cemetery. And we've basically, Tamano has done tons of homework. We interviewed quite a few companies, and Semify was the way to go. They had all the needs that our customers need, and basically it's so user-friendly that the average bear can use it. And the online tools would be linked to our city's website through a customer portal. And as you can see here in this image, it's fairly simple to navigate through. They can type in their family's, in the search bar in the upper right, their family's name or the purchaser's name. And it will automatically GIS map them right into the quadrant where their family is. And as you can see also, it's color coded. So we have asked Semify to color code so that all families, regardless of if they have a site that they've purchased already, or if they are just interested in looking, for the future, they can see the green is available. The yellow is sold, but not currently occupied. And the red is occupied with the deceased's name as well as date of birth and day of death. So we also have markings. I don't believe it's on this one here, but we do have some that have little stars. So if someone wants to find where all of our veterans are, it's completely across the board, all throughout all 4 editions. And we can pull that list readily for customers through this portal. So it wouldn't be difficult for the families to find their relatives. You could also see who's assigned as well. So if the family had purchased it many years ago and they're not really sure where Aunt Susie was supposed to be buried, but they know that their uncle wanted her right next to him, her name should be there if they assigned her, and there wouldn't be any issues. So let me apologize. So the previous way we went about things was so paper oriented. It just took so much time for the families. They would have to wait for us to be available for them to call. And then there were some cases where they wouldn't even have a deed, so they didn't really know where they were going, what they needed to do. And with this system, they can call us if they chose to during business hours. We could pull up the portal with them, and we can navigate, and they can view where their loved ones are. And see where people, have availability and who's assigned. You could see here in the yellow, you could see assigned, and then, we've got one right here. Mr. Ratliff is a veteran, so you can see the nice little star next to his name. But so if they look up Mr. Ratliff, they could be standing at the front of the cemetery, pull it up on their smartphone, iPad, whatever device you have, and click their name, and it will route you the direction that they're residing in, so that the customers don't have to search for headstones, don't have to search, Tamano Marina, please. I don't really know where anybody is, and unfortunately, some families back then didn't always have a marker, so they don't necessarily know exactly where their loved one, is, or even their sites. So with this new system, on any smartphone, any device, they can easily find where they need to be without having to just search in the heat, especially in the summer, and Tamano knows best. 2 hours in the cemetery with a grieving client is just not ideal. And in that instance, we would have where she would call me, I would say, what's the closest grave marker you could find? And we'd have to see what's available, what's not. And it was just not, it wasn't conducive to the customer's needs at that time. So our whole goal is just to make sure that families, when they come through, they come in and out. They're not having to stress about one more thing when they're dealing with so much already. So it is GIS based. So we've basically given them all of our surveys and all of our mapping, and they've kind of just did an image, and as it gets updated, it just keeps going through the cloud. Anytime Tamano and I add a adjustment, it just populates right there in there, so the customer can see it in real time. They don't have to wait an hour, or the next day. They can go home, pull it up, and say, wow, it's really nice to know that their information is there. It also records payments. So if any records, Lord forbid, something crashes with the computer systems and payments aren't recorded and people lose receipts, the payment system will tell us how much they paid, what their payment went to, and we can even reprint for them, whether it's the original purchaser or the next of kin. And again, this is just talking about GPS coordinates, where it's plugged into any GPS mapping tool. So Google Maps, it's really friendly with. So it'll pull it up something like this, and as the customer gets closer to the site, it will actually navigate and show you where bushes and trees and roads are. So they're not going to have to say, well, how many roads do I need to count before I get to where I'm going? They'll be able to see a real image, just like Google Maps, and find where they need to be, without the hassle of trying to count rows. And with this, it's really great too. So a lot of people have actually asked about their friends and family in sites near them. So they're able to not only have to walk up to it, but they can see who's sitting next to them and how close they are, so they won't have to worry about that. Okay, so this is a bigger image of, we have portion of edition 2, edition 4, and 1. I wasn't able to fit all of it because the cemetery kind of blurs out after a little if you go too far back. So I wanted to show you guys in the legend in the corner, we do again have the open, sold, occupied, and obstructed. So in the instance of obstructed sites, the families will know, and they could even call us. So 20 years ago, some family member planted an oak tree. Well, unfortunately, after all that time, the oak tree grows up and it's in their family site. So what we do is we will have the family call, or even we go out and notate it. We go into the site here and just say there's an obstruction in the site. We can say there's an oak tree, a pine tree, whatever the case may be. And I do know that that in some cases we have had some folks that have come in and said, well, this is not where the site is. Well, let's break it down. So with the new survey and the systems we have, we're able to get directly where loved ones are. And they can also shift the map as well, which is great, so that people don't have to worry about their family being off to the side or, the headstone being misplaced. Okay, so we're going to talk about burial owners. I know a lot of this is when we have the first call we usually get, Tamano and I say, how can we help you? And the customer says, well, my family member had passed on, and I don't know who bought it. Okay, well, let's find a relative's name, and we're able to immediately put it in, and it generates the purchaser. Everything is connected with this cloud-based system so that when the paperwork we would go through were stacks and stacks of folders. And Tamano and I would have to flip through each one, tell the customer, we're gonna have to call you back, I'm so sorry. And we'd have to flip through countless forms to make sure that we had the right person. And then that form didn't always have the purchaser. So we'd have to find the site ID, go into the database, look up that, and it was just so time consuming. With this system, the database is connected to our cloud, and as we add and sell, and everything is automatically put in. So if someone is buried and the purchaser is linked to that person, whether they gave permission or even next of kin, it will automatically generate it so someone can say, oh, that's right, that was the original purchaser from 60 years ago, 30 years ago. Because some of us don't, we lose contact, we may not always remember whose maiden name was what. So we're able to pull this up and get ownership. And when you do pull it up, it will say ownership and if they've assigned it, which is great because a lot of people, again, they may not know where their family assigned them, and it's good to know. I also want to notate here that families, if they choose to, can add an image. They would have to reach out to us to make sure that the image is appropriate for that, but it would just help somebody find the right family member. So they can do that and upload it, which is just a regular image, nothing fancy. Okay, so viewing and editing records, the families can view everything so fast and easy, and again, they don't have to wait from Friday to Sunday before they call, or through holidays, because unfortunately things happen in the when we least expect them. And in this case, if they do know and have the information, they can print it out at home and have everything ready so that they're in and out of our office as quickly as possible. And we also have the forms online. So while we're on the phone with the customers and families, they could be at the funeral home getting everything done all at once, and we can process them and just get on the way. So last but finally not least, the paper versus cloud-based. So paper-based cemetery and record keeping is just so inconvenient. It is kind of all over the place. Some people have chicken scratch or look like doctors are writing the notes, and then some have great handwriting. And over time, we've made scans, we've made copies, and the records aren't always original. So the families don't necessarily have access to these records, and we do. So some could be missing or scanned improperly. So there's a lot of human error that goes into this. But with this cloud system, while we're talking to families, they can explain to us all the information they need to have written down. Everything is typed in, and they review it prior to signing. So everything that was written down in the old time, in the past, has now been typed into the new cloud-based system. So if there are errors, the families can always give us a call and say, hey, my grandfather's name wasn't McCormick, it was McCormick. So we can always make sure that we make those edits quickly and efficiently so that they're not struggling to look up for their family members. We also plan on reaching out to Semify to get a QR code, which we're very excited about, that we can put at the cemetery in the kiosk, that the family wouldn't even have to worry about looking up city of website. They would take a picture of the QR code and it would direct them right to where they need to be, type in their family member's name, and you're on your way. And we also have, it's all hours. So, things happen, 1:30, you wake up, you got things you got to do, and, I've been there, we've got to plan it to make sure that everyone's happy and content with their decisions. So, it's stressful, it's hard, and you shouldn't have to wait to call the city to say, hey, are you guys open yet to help me find this? Or can you meet me at the cemetery? Because Tamano and I are truly, we go out to meet them, but we have to make sure we clear our schedules all the time. So we just have to make sure that the family can make it to us, and then we can go and help them find what they need. With this system, they can easily see what's available and say, look, I saw edition 1, I saw edition 4, there's a few over here. Can you take me over there? Not a problem. And once we show it to them, our cemetery is beautiful. So 9 times out of 10, they're happy with what they've seen, and they're ready to go. So Tamano and I have been using it. Unfortunately, the customers don't have the portal access just yet, but Tamano and I log right in. We take a snip of where the families, either reside or they would like to reside. And they just absolutely love the color code, the GIS, and knowing, that this new technology is available, fast, easy. We've cut down our time. We used to spend hours with the customers. Hours, and it's kind of sad because you don't want to drag anything out more than you need to. So instead of 3 hours, you've cut it down 45 minutes max. That's if everything runs smooth, and Tamano and I, we knock it out pretty good. So it's fast, easy, and effective. We're really proud of it, and our biggest goal was to make sure that our families are happy, that when they come here while they're grieving, they don't have to stress about one more tiresome thing while they're grieving. And we're really proud of it.
Sounds wonderful. Is there an app that people need to download at this point? Will there be an app eventually that people can download, or is it all going to be on the QR code of the website?
So Mayor, Semify actually has a link that we can, once they click on utilities and public works and what our cemetery offers, there is a link that gives them access immediately. There's no login, no need for any of accounts or anything like that. The QR code will be linked directly to that link. So as soon as they click on it, it's identical image of what they find when they look up the web address.
Okay. Anybody got any questions? Commissioner Farnsworth?
Hello.
Hi.
So is the kiosk being kept up to date?
So, Mayor, Commissioner, the kiosk is not up to date as of today. I do know that I spoke with
That's what
some.
Riley's doing, right? She's back there entering in, getting it up to date.
So, with the kiosk, it is not a web-based kiosk. So there is no, screen built inside. So the map that is in it is a little older than the one that we have recently acquired. So Tamano and I actually mentioned that one of our goals is to make sure that we reprint and try to do it every 6 months. Because unfortunately, if we did it every other week, it would just be too busy. I hate to say it, but unfortunately, it's the times we're in. But it will be updated more frequently. We do make that promise to the families. It will also have a list of all the folks that are residing and the site IDs. So if someone doesn't have the technology skills to get on their phones, they'll be able to look at the kiosk and kind of figure out where they need to go. And again, we're more than happy to meet them at the cemetery and do our best.
Will people be able to purchase lots from this site, or how do they still have to go to the city to purchase lots?
So the software can actually allow them to purchase, but we've cut that portion out just for human error concerns. Because if the family decides to purchase sight unseen, there may be a tree that nobody knew about or nobody recognized. And we would hate for them to purchase that site, get ready for the funeral, and then say, wow, there's a huge pine tree here that we're going to have to get removed. And it would be a little tricky. We do offer the customers to take a look, but we do recommend that they come in just to make sure that the paperwork is accurate, that is the site that they would prefer, and just make sure it's what they need.
Okay. And I was going to ask you that.
He's next.
Yeah, really. I'm having Biden moments. Excuse me. Yeah, I can't remember what I said.
Let's go to Commissioner Maison. You'll remember
let's
it.
do. Think about it there, Monty. I just have a call. What's your name again? I'm sorry.
Funny
I got
guy.
you, yeah. So, is there an extra cost when you take the photo, or is that included?
No, that's included.
That's included.
It's included, yes.
Okay, and then what about historical cemeteries in the area? Can they pay to be included in this in any way?
I don't believe so, but I don't want to say no, because this format is directly and specifically linked to the city cemetery.
Okay.
So accommodating our citizens' needs and our cemetery's needs. If they needed to add an addition to the cemetery, I would have to look into that, definitely, and see.
Commissioner Farnsworth, you remember?
Do you know how many sites are still available?
So I believe there's quite a few. If I have to think back, that's a very good question.
Give it to us in years. How many more years before we have to acquire more
Well, I'm
space?
hoping it's not years, because we don't want to see our residents go or our folks go that fast.
Well, it could be 100 years.
You know, John?
It could, a couple thousand, I believe, but Jamie probably knows.
A couple thousand years. That's good. Really good.
I don't have the actual available lot number. Me and Tamano looked at it approximately 6 months ago, and at our current absorption rate, there was over 20 years of capacity left in the existing cemetery.
And are the lots only available to Newberry citizens?
No, the lots are available to Newberry citizens and non-Newberry citizens.
Commissioner Coleman?
Are we gonna look at maybe putting a mausoleum in there for, I mean, you know, there, a lot of people now are not wanting to be buried, and it's actually cheaper on the family to be cremated.
We
And I see a lot, I mean, do we have one in there?
Mr. Mayor, we actually have a crematorium niche. It's a little different than a mausoleum, but it does accept cremation or cremated remains in our urn. It's a small unit now. It does have the ability to expand.
I didn't know that. Oh, you dump them?
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, it actually has individual compartments that
Yeah, that's what okay.
that you actually put the urn in. It's dedicated to that particular family member's remains.
Okay.
Any other questions? Marina, would we be able to, because we've got 2 or 3 different groups that like to go out there and put flags for Veterans Day, those kinds of things. Would we be able to go ahead and pre-print up maps? Could they use their phone to follow along? Can we make sure that we, maybe what we need is have a map, just a sheet of paper that has instructions that we can give out to those groups?
We actually requested a STAR process just for those groups that go out and do the flags, and for the groups that go out and clean veterans' headstones.
Love it when staff is ahead of me. Well, Marina, you did a great job. We appreciate you. Wonderful job, Tamana. Good job back there.
Thank you. I
All right.
appreciate all of you.
Thank you so much. You know, Commissioner Farnsworth was the cemetery liaison for, I don't know, 40, 50 years. I was glad to see we got some young blood going in there and mixing it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to public announcements. If you're here to talk to the commission about something that's not on the agenda, now's a wonderful time to do that. You can step up, let us know about garage sales, lost dogs, anything's going on. 2 minutes to do that. Anybody got any announcements that they want to make? Hearing none, we're going to move along.
We have one.
Come on.
I'll be real quick.
That's all right. You got 2 whole minutes.
Don't count me walking up there, please. Take that off my time. Okay. Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Lisa Darling, and I do apologize for not being here at the last meeting. Y'all know I just love coming to these meetings. I do want to say thank you to your staff, Dallas and his, the person that came to our meeting to talk to us about the electricity and everything, and it was really helpful to the citizens of Newberry that come, and so thank you for letting them come and do the presentation, and I'm just, y'all know I have to say something. Thank you.
No, hey, you can say all that you want. We love it when our staff gets out there. Any other public announcements? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion from Commissioner Coleman, second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to move us to public hearings and ordinances. Our first one is quasi judicial, and we've got quite a few on the agenda tonight. I didn't count them up, but they look Look like a lot of them. So we're going to read through the quasi judicial procedures just like we did for the BOA. If no one new enters the chamber, then we're not going to read through the procedures again. We'll just do ex parte. So if you're here to talk to any, speak to any quasi judicial, now I'm going to ask you to stand up and swear in a minute, not just right now. But I'm going to go ahead and get these procedures out of the way. We are entering quasi judicial procedure. This means the commission will stop being a legislative body and become a judicial board, which means that we have to follow certain rules and adhere to a different standard of decision making. The primary rule we must follow is concerning testimony, and the suspension of competent evidence standard must be met when the judicial board makes a decision. The standard states the following, and I quote, all public testimony will be taken under oath. Everyone testifying will be subject to cross-examination. All documents and exhibits shall be entered into evidence. The giving opinion testimony is limited to experts, and closing arguments is limited to the evidence of record. I'm going to ask the city attorney if he will read into the record, and this first one is, well, it's developer's agreement, so we don't have anything to read. What have we been doing?
It's just a motion, Mr. Mayor, to approve the development agreement for Avalon Woods Phase 2 between the City of Newberry and M3 Avalon Woods LLC.
We're going to make that another amendment to our quasi-judicial procedures to enter in developers' agreements, so it jogs my memory. Okay, now I'm going to ask Madam Attorney, or Madam Clerk, if you would swear in. Again, if you're here to speak to any of the items under quasi-judicial tonight, if you please stand up and we're going to swear you in all at one time.
Please raise your right hand and say your name for the record.
Brian Thomas.
Mike Hayes. Norman Howard. John Paul Perez.
That's right.
Paul Boone. Don Willis. Greg Oldie.
Yeah, Rebecca.
Jason. Gary Walton.
Martha Walton.
Chris Potts. David McDaniel. Jeff Cole.
Do you hereby swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have been duly sworn.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Now, before we begin, we'll need to disclose any ex parte communications. We'll do this for each quasi-judicial tonight. Commissioner Coleman?
None.
Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
None.
Commissioner Mazon?
I have none.
I'm a non-voting mayor, but I have none to disclose as well. Now I'm going to explain the order of presentations that we're going to follow for this quasi-judicial and every quasi-judicial. Again, as long as nobody new enters the chamber, I won't need to go through this again, but we're going to start with the staff overview. Then the applicant will have the opportunity to make a presentation with no time limit. Then we'll hear from the staff with their recommendation, also with no time limit. I have not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim a third-party intervener status for any of the quasi-judicials tonight. That will take us to public comment. Any member of the public wishing to speak to any different quasi-judicial will have 3 minutes to do so. Then we'll hear cross-examination from the applicant and staff, member decision-making body. Through the chair, we're going to ask questions of the applicant or the staff or any of the participants. Then we'll hear final arguments. Then the city attorney will advise decision-making bodies the law and the factual findings that must be made to approve or deny the application. And then we will deliberate on the application. After deliberations, a vote will be taken to approve conditions, continue, or deny the application. That's the order that we'll follow tonight. And we'll start with our first quasi-judicial overview. Brian, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the second reading, second hearing for the development agreement for Phase 2 of Avalon Woods. Just a refresher, this is the location of Phase 2. It basically determines the course of the development of Phase 2, which parties are responsible for which different pieces of development. Phase 2 is actually pretty standard. There are no extra requirements in the development agreement for Phase 2. There's a master development agreement that has a number of items on it, but this particular phase does not have to include any of those extras. So it's kind of the boilerplate version of the development agreement for Avalon Woods. Will remain in effect until 12/31/2037. I'm going backwards in time. And as proposed, the agreement, staff finds the agreement consistent with the approved development ordinance and development agreement for the Avalon Woods mixed-use development and the city's LDRs and comprehensive plan. And just going through what you've already seen as far as the elements of the development agreement. Has the final master plan for Phase 2. The next item you'll hear will be the construction plans for Phase 2. And so staff's recommended action is to approve development agreement SD 2202 on second reading.
heard a staff recommendation. I'm assuming the applicant doesn't want to make a presentation? All right. That'll take us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item, this developer's agreement about Avalon Woods? Seeing none, would the applicant like to cross-examine? No? All right. Members of the decision-making body, do you have any questions for the applicant or staff? Remember, this is second hearing, so not trying to give short shrift to it, but we've gone over this pretty thoroughly. No questions? Okay, that's going to take us to final arguments. Staff, do you have anything else to say? Do you have any final arguments, anything left to say? Okay. Applicant waives. Mr. Attorney, would you please advise the decision-making bodies of applicable law and factual findings?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, this is substantial and competent evidence standard.
Thank you, sir. Sure. All right. We'll enter into deliberations. There are no deliberations. I'll entertain a motion. I have a motion from Commissioner Clark. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now, items 7 and 8 on tonight's agenda are not quasi-judicial, so we're going to pause the QJ procedures, but we're still there. Item 7 is construction plans for Avalon Woods. And Mr. Attorney, would you go ahead and read the resolution into the record for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 2022-73, SD 22-02, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving with appropriate conditions and safeguards construction plans for Avalon Woods Phase 2 as authorized under sections 5.17 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations for the construction of infrastructure and site improvements in a mixed-use MU zoning district on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Repealing all resolutions in conflict and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2022-73 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Thomas?
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the accompanying set of construction plans for your review and approval for Avalon Woods Phase 2. Basically, it boils down to Phase 2 is 106 single-family units with a total of 26.85 acres, more or less. It's part of the Avalon Woods mixed-use development, as depicted here. That's the section of Phase 2 relative to the other areas. There's a close-up of the 106 units. It's up at the western side of the entranceway to Easton Newberry Sports Complex and now to Avalon Woods. The plans were reviewed by the city's development application review team and also by outside engineering company EDA. A couple of rounds of revisions went back and forth, and it's the plans that have been submitted now are compliant with all of those comments provided by the city and the outside engineer. The construction plans, of course, approval allows the developer to proceed with construction of the infrastructure needed to develop the phase. Once these, you've given approval, the developer has the option to either construct the infrastructure in its entirety and then come back for final plat approval, or they can seek final plat approval with the use of a surety device that would be approved by the city attorney. Once it's either completed or accepted by, or the surety is accepted by the city, then they can come back for final plat approval, which allows them to then start building actual homes on the site. The construction plans are consistent with the development approvals for Avalon Woods and with the city's land development regulations and comprehensive plan. Staff's recommended action then is to approve resolution 2022-73, approving the construction plans for Avalon Woods Phase 2. And one note I need to make is when I was reviewing this, I did have to make a change to the resolution. The resolution in your packet, the only change that I made was the legal description was for the entirety of Avalon Woods, not just for Phase 2. And so in the amended version, it has just the boundary for Phase 2, which will provide to the mayor for his signature once it's printed and corrected for him. So that's the only change. There were no other changes other than the legal description in the resolution.
Okay, is that it, Brian?
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Got any questions on phase two?
Continuation.
All right. Seeing no questions, we've already read the resolution in. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Clark, a second from Commissioner Maison. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. That takes us on to item 8, which is a petition requesting approval of a major subdivision preliminary plat known as Lakota. Mr. Attorney, would you please read Resolution 2022-26 in the record for us?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, approving a preliminary plat for Lakota subdivision within an agricultural A zoning district as authorized under Section 5.16 of the City of Newberry Land Development Regulations on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, encompassing tax parcel numbers 04371-001-001, 04379-000-000, consisting of approximately 45.53 acres, repealing resolutions in conflict, providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is to pass resolution number 2022-26, SD 22-04, as read by title only.
Take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. John Paul Perez with the City of Newberry Planning and Economic Development Department. This is the companion item to the special exception that the Board of Adjustment recently approved. This is the preliminary plat. In addition to this, you'll see this come back in the form of construction plans as well as a final plat. On the screen now is a general location of the subject property. Again, an aerial of the property showing the properties of the land, mostly wooded, so they have a lot of trees to work with. They won't need to plant any of that perimeter. Again, 15 lots, an average density of 1 unit for every 3 acres, well and septic, clay, and privately owned and maintained interior road. Not mentioned as part of the special exception, but included here because it's more relevant to the plat. The owner has worked with the neighbor. They're providing an additional 40-foot buffer, similar to what was provided for Barrington for one of their neighbors to the west. So they're offering this as an olive branch, just to be a good neighbor. Here you can see the 50-foot perimeter buffer that'll be on the front of the property. So there'll be a densely wooded area there. The 25-foot perimeter buffer that you could saw from the aerial will be densely wooded. And then on the west side there, that's lots 5 through 8, we'll have a 40-foot there. So sufficient screening is provided for this development. Again, the marketing material that the applicant has put together, just to give you a better colorized understanding of what's happening on the site. And the suggested conditions are dedication language for the buffer easement. We're working through that. We're trying to figure it out with the applicant now. They have a great solution, so we're moving forward with what they've recommended. Again, similar to the special exception, there's an incorporation of our code and all those additional requirements that we looked at when we adopted the text amendment that will be included into the homeowners association documents. And as just stated, lots 5 through 7 will have the city street standards. That those lots have a different kind of right-of-way layout, so I just want to ensure that those have that same paved access. And then that 40-foot buffer that they'll be providing for those properties to the west. And as I said earlier, the next steps are construction drawings and final plats, so you'll see this again. This is not the last stop. And the request, staff has found consistent with the comprehensive plan and the land development regulations, and at the pleasure of the board, you may approve conditions, or deny the resolution and preliminary plat request.
Okay, questions for staff? Commissioner Farnsworth.
The map I'm looking at, is there a connection to 241 South there?
There's only one connection to the site, and that is 15th Avenue.
Okay, how come there's not another exit?
These are private roads, and the intention is not to have, a road network necessarily. These are single developments.
So we only have one ingress and egress?
Correct, correct.
But remember, in the small scale, these are half acre, 2 acre, or 1.5 to 2 acre lots. So you're not looking at,
I thought they're like 2 to 4 acre lots.
yeah. So it's a whole different thing than like an interconnectivity when you've got 500 houses going in.
Okay, and on the cul-de-sac here, there's no area to turn around or anything, it's just dead ends?
Let me defer to the applicant on that one. They should have a good response for that.
Is there, also, is there any green space that's been set aside?
Great question. So traditionally, or built into the code is a requirement to set aside 15%. However, if you achieve a density of greater than 1 unit for every 3 acres, and because this is more of an agricultural estate type development, once you've achieved that density, that requirement for common open space goes away. And so on this particular one, they've achieved that density requirement, so they won't be providing the additional 15% common open space for the residents.
Is that all your questions, Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Maison?
No,
You got it? Oh, you haven't answered the cul-de-sac. I'm sorry. I jumped.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Mr. Chair, and the fellow commissioners. Yeah, so that was actually brought up during the planning and zoning meeting, and we will work with fire rescue. We'll probably actually shift that cul-de-sac to the south and have that be a true roadway, so that a fire truck can make a turnaround there near lots 6 and 7 there.
I would suggest having the cul-de-sac in both. I know that's a little bit more of an expense, but if I'm trying to get out by an ambulance, I don't want my ambulance having to turn all the way back down and go there and come back. So it seems like at each bend, I should be able to navigate around, but I'll take staff's recommendation on that. It is a problem now. The P&Z brought it up. Commissioner Farnsworth were right to it as well. But that does, with only one point in and out, it is going to take a while for an ambulance, not a while, but an ambulance to get all the way to that last house there and then have to work its way back out. That would be kind of tough.
I would like to add that the roadway is about a half mile in length as well.
Okay. Other questions?
I was just gonna ask, since this is kind of mirroring Barrington, and evidently you're working with him, as I asked earlier, do they have any, in one map, you're showing a buffer, but on the other Barrington side, there is no buffer? Is that just green? The line here delineates just setbacks?
So I think
to the east, is that just setback lines?
so. There is a buffer on the east and north side as well. I think John Paul was emphasizing the 40-foot buffer there on the west side and the 50-foot buffer on the front. But
yes,
per the code requirement, there's a 25-foot buffer on both the east and north side.
So it could be greened out too. Okay, thank you, sir.
Is it going to be a gated community?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right. If I hear no questions, do I have a motion?
I'll enter a motion with the exception of is it gonna move that cul-de-sac down, or are you gonna get 2 cul-de-sacs?
I mean, I think let's empower staff to have that conversation and just say we want to make sure that emergency vehicles can get in and out, whatever makes sense in the end.
And there'll be another bite at the apple. Their construction plans will come through for review by this board. You'll see what ends up with this.
And then we can make that motion.
Yeah,
motion.
and we'll be prepared also at that time to speak. I don't remember off the top of my head, but most codes speak to the amount of the length of a road before some turnaround opportunity is provided, and we will check that. It's a subdivision standard type analysis, so we'll reference that when we're evaluating the construction plans.
Second.
So I have a motion. Are you having a caveat in there? Or are you going to wait till the construction plans?
No, we're fine. Both fine.
Okay, so I have a motion, and that is your second?
Yes.
That motion. Motion made by Commissioner Maison, second by Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor for the dice? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And ladies and gentlemen, we're back into quasi judicial. I've read through that, our procedures, and we've sworn in. So I'm going to start by asking our attorney to please read on first reading ordinance 2022-46/CPA 22-06 into the record. Everybody have a wonderful night and drive safely home. I'll see some of you first thing in the morning.
Mr. Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to an amendment of the future land use plan map of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited amendment procedures established in sections 163.3184, subsections 2 and 3 of the Florida statutes, and in conformance with sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing for a change in future land use classification from agriculture to residential low density on certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers 02508-002-000, 02514-000-000, 02522-000-000, 02523-001-000, 02523-001-001, 02538-000-000, 02538-004-001, 02538-004-002, 02538-006-000, 02538-006-002, and a portion of 01981-001-001 consisting of approximately 258.3 acres, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-46, CPA 22-06, upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. Let's go ahead and do ex parte. Commissioner Maison?
None.
Commissioner Farnsworth? Commissioner Clark?
None.
Commissioner Coleman? Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We sworn in, read the ordinance, ex parte. Let's start with staff overview. JP?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, John Paul Perez, City of Newberry Planning and Economic Development Department. As read into the record by the city attorney, this is a request to change the future land use from agriculture to residential low density on 258 acres. On the screen now is a general location of the properties within the city of Newberry in the southwest quadrant. This shows the amalgamation of all the properties that are will be subject to the land use change. This is the current land use of the properties, mostly agriculture. Just a small portion of that property is already residential low density. So that portion will remain as is, while the rest that are agricultural will be converted to residential low density should the request pass. And this is the proposed future land use that you are considering tonight. And just to explain, residential low density is 4 units for every acre. So 4 units per acre, yep. And this is the preliminary development plan that was submitted. This is a conceptual plan. It is also a phased plan. On the screen now is phase 1, in which they'll be doing on the east side of County Road 337 will be the single-family attached and detached homes. On the west side will be the detached homes. As part of the phase 1, prior to commencement of phase 2, which I'll show you in a second, we're requiring that all the open space that you see here in green be completed prior to commencement of Phase 2, so the residents living there will have access to the open space. There is Phase 2, and then finally Phase 3. Again, just showing you the phase, or they call it Area C on the plan, but this is part of Phase 1. This is the more dense part of the development that will include attached single-family homes. Attached single-family homes can be like row homes or townhouses. They share a party wall with the neighbor. Also on this, there's not any open space. One of the conditions that our staff is asking of the applicant is either to provide open space on this portion of the property or to provide an improved crosswalk so the residents here can have access to the open space on the west side of County Road 337. In our code, the supplemental regulations, they do require any multifamily, and townhouse kind of technically is multifamily, be of a Florida vernacular design. This is not in the city of Newberry. This is from the city of Fort Lauderdale, but this is an example of what a Florida vernacular townhouse development will look like. City has approved alternate designs in the past, so we're not beholden to the Florida vernacular as long as it's of equal or greater design value. This is the circulation throughout the site. You can see Southwest 15th Ave cut all the way through with stub out to the west and to the east. We're hoping to connect it all the way through on the east. We've secured that right away already. On the south, which is part of Phase 3, and you can see a dashed circle. That stub out actually connects to a private road. So for the time being, that's not going to connect to that private road. That private road will remain private. We'll just have a dead end or a turnaround there. And just to go over the intent and purpose of planned residential development. So attached to this future land use is the zoning, which makes all of what you've just seen work. Without that zoning, their proposed preliminary development plan doesn't work. PRD, again, planned residential development, allows for flexible and creative concepts, allows for preservation of natural amenities, desirable environment not possible through minimum requirements, and a more efficient use of land. Typically, that would mean clustering. This is exactly what they've done here. So on the west and the south of this property are agricultural uses and very low density on those. And so what they've done is they've located all the detached and lower density housing on the west side of County Road 337, and more intense has been located on the east side where there's existing residential already. And lastly, it allows for stable environmental character with surrounding area, and that's part of what they've tried to achieve here. I'm going to get into process a little bit, just so we can understand what we're approving today, or considering today, I should say, and the path forward for the applicant. So what's being considered today is the preliminary development plan. It's a very conceptual, nebulous plan. It essentially just shows you kind of where on the map things are going to be and just general road layout. What we don't have are exact lot layouts, exact side street layouts, local streets, those things, exact utility layouts within the site. Exact plans as to what the open space is going to look like, et cetera. This preliminary development plan, should it be approved at first reading, pass through the state, come back for second reading, be approved. From that point, they have 12 months to submit to the city of Newberry a final development plan. The final development plan is going to be that clear picture that we all want to see that's not here today. So right now we're in a conceptual stage. The final development plan is the more finite picture where we'll have all the streets, sidewalks, elevations of the proposed homes, all the open space, et cetera. They have 12 months to submit that after they get their preliminary approval. If they fail to submit it, it reverts back to the agriculture that it is today, all right? They can have one-time extension. They have to come back before the city commission to request an extension of that, so they can get another 12 months. Only one, though. Say they submit their final development plan, it's now in. We work through it and everything looks good. From the date that that final development plan gets approved, they have 2 years to start what the code calls substantial construction or substantial development. It's not clearly defined, but typically that means the installation of roads and water infrastructure. So once those are in place, they've kind of vested their development. So again, that's something we'll probably need to work through as far as what a interpretation of what that means, but traditionally that's what that means. So for the request before you tonight, we're right now looking at the future land use. We've had our planning and zoning. We're at the first public hearing. We have, when we get to the motions, it'll be an motion to approve on first reading and then a motion to authorize the Land Development Regulation Administrator to transmit to the state. Goes to state for 30 to 60 days, comes back with their comments. When I say state, that means the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Florida Department of Transportation, Florida Department of Environmental Protection, also includes the Alachua County School Board, Growth Management, et cetera. In anticipation of their review, we've already reached out to the county to get some initial feedback. And at this stage, again, because it's conceptual, there's not a lot of feedback that they can give us. But they do look forward to seeing, as we get closer to actual design, what those plans will look like and improvements that can be made. And accompanying this is a rezoning, and we'll get into that in a separate presentation. Just so you're aware, the development agreement, the development agreement is attached to the zoning, and so it's not being considered with this land use, and we're still in the process of finalizing a complete development plan. And so we're still in talks with the developer to address some of the outstanding issues staff has identified, but some of them that are included in the current development agreement that is attached to the zoning include traffic calming, as I mentioned earlier, allocating open space to Area C or constructing an improved pedestrian crosswalk, and open space being available prior to commencement of Phase 2. With that, staff finds the request consistent with the comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and at the pleasure of the board, the first motion would be to approve on first reading, approve conditions or deny. And then the second motion that we're requesting tonight, should the first one pass, is to authorize the Land Development Regulation Administrator to transmit the petition to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. That completes my presentation.
Okay, thank you, JP. That was a long overview and a recommendation. I'm assuming the applicant does not have a presentation? You do have a presentation, okay. In the future, let's do a little short overview. Applicant goes first, then we'll come back to the staff. All right. Unless the presentation is even longer than the overview. Then we'll cut it back down to just the overview. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chris Potts, Director of Engineering for JB Pro. There we go. So as JB mentioned, we're here for the West Dome project for a comprehensive plan amendment as well as a rezoning application. Right now before you is just the comprehensive plan amendment request, and then the next item will be the rezoning application. Just going to go through a little bit of the project background, the existing and proposed land use, zoning, and then just answer any questions that the board may have. So as John Paul mentioned, the property is a little strange shape. There's quite a bit of existing parcels that are out of the development. Those are because those are either owned by somebody separate, or the ones in the center are actually in Alachua County, not the city of Newberry. And then those parcels on the far southern east side that kind of look like teeth are existing residents that were part of an old plat many years ago.
Sorry. Everything that's outlined in red, is that the property that's being proposed for land use?
That is correct.
So the confusion is in our packet, and I'm not sure it's a confusion. In our packet, there's these little sections here.
Yes, so those, as you can see, that those are, the lines go around those parcels.
Okay.
That are in the center.
You see what I'm saying?
So it looks like, so this is not in it.
Those are correct. The ones in the center are not in it. Those are in Alachua County.
So where is that little piece that you got up at the top
It's-
to the side there?
It's a little challenging to see. Well, when we get further through,
Okay.
you'll see
All
it.
right. If we're still confused at the end, we'll come back to it.
Yes. So as John Paul mentioned, the property is, the existing land use is agriculture. And then the proposed land use is residential low density, which is 1 per 4 acres. The existing zoning is ag as well, except for a small portion, which is RSF and MH2. And our proposed zoning, which we'll go through in the next item, is planned residential development, PRD. The reason why we're requesting a low-density residential land use is we're not actually requesting a planned development, which would require some sort of mixed-use component. This would be strictly a residential development. So that's why we're requesting a residential low density. So this is the preliminary development plan, the PD master plan, as John Paul mentioned. You can see there is a little bit of that sliver that you're talking about that's in it. It's a little challenging to see with the different shapes. Now, our overall density that we're requesting is 4.0 units per acre. On the west side of County Road 337, it comes out to 3.5, a little over 3.5. On the east side, it's 6.75 units per acre. But again, just remember that it's the overall acreage, which is the 1.4. We broke it up this way just so everybody could see where the attached and detached units are compared to the single family. And then County Road 337 kind of acted as a divide, so we wanted to split it up so the board could see the different sides. Excuse me. And again, the existing residential development to the east is there are some existing attached units down 15th Avenue, and the area to the north is all single family. So in discussing with staff, having attached units on the east side of County Road 337, those blend in with the existing development that's over there. And then on the west side, we're just going to have all single family detached units, as well as a buffer requirement, which is part of the PRD. So the PRD itself will have a buffer requirement around the entire perimeter. I know there's been some environmental discussions. A lot of people know the history of the property and what it was used for in the past with potential petroleum, pesticides and that sort of thing. So the applicant had an environmental study performed, and these are the results. The environmental company determined that there are no signs of any potential hazardous material. And they went through a list of them, but their overall findings and opinions is that there are no contaminants on the property. Now, I'd like to just back up real quick and just talk about a couple items. One is County Road 337. I know that is a discussion item of the roadway and quality of the road itself. Unfortunately, that is a county road, and that will be discussed during the final development plan with the county of what roadway improvements are going to be required. At a minimum, we will improve the intersection of County Road 337 and 15th, which would be north and south, left turn lanes onto 15th, and then 15th would be constructed from the existing side towards the cemetery, continuing on westward to create a bypass for most residents to use 15th instead of Newberry Road to get to the schools and other areas on the east side of town. Now, the intention of the development itself is going to be a 10 to 12 year process for full build out. That's depending on the economy as well. Could be a little longer. With the way interest rates are going, most likely it'll drag out for a little longer. I mean, we all don't have a crystal ball, but that is if everything moves as is, then the intention would be a 10 to 12 year project. With the school board, we'd go through the process of concurrency with the school board. With the extent and length of the project, hopefully the school will have some necessary improvements for the local school, but unfortunately, the improvements by the school board are out of our control. It's up to the county schools themselves on what improvements are required. But in general, that is our presentation, and we request that the City Commission approve right now the comprehensive plan amendment, and then later the rezoning petition to be transmitted as city staff and the Planning and Zoning Board recommended.
Okay, so since it's a clarifying question, I'm gonna allow this question before we go to public comment. Did you get the map figured out in your head?
I sure did.
Okay, good. I think I got it now too. Thank you, sir. That'll take us to public comment. Any members of the public wishing to speak to this item have 3 minutes to do so. Just come on up to start a queue. And then the applicant will have another opportunity after public comment.
Is the mic on?
If there's a green light at the base of the stem there, then it's on.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Paul Hornby. I've been a resident of Newberry for 35 years. I'll begin by saying that I have no doubt this development is going to get approved. I say that based on several observations, to include discussions and comments made at the Planning Commission meeting a couple weeks ago. The current application process and structure established by the city favors development. Technically, your 10-day notification period was in compliance. However, the reality is that most of the impacted residents really only had around 5 days to learn about the proposed development and in turn review over 800 pages of supporting documentation prior to the planning board meeting. As I stated at the planning board meeting, it would better serve the community if the developer would hold a public workshop in advance of the planning board meeting. The purpose of the workshop would allow a more favorable venue for the public to provide feedback to the plan, not just a 3-minute comment. This would allow the developer to listen to the residents' concerns and potentially address the feedback by amending their application, which would in turn make the overall process better for all parties. Sadly, the city would rather limit public comment, begin the approval process, and then place the burden on the impacted residents to reach out to the developer with their concerns. 66 residents received the 400-foot notification. By your rationale, it is better for 66 residents to reach out to the developer with their concerns rather than have the developer host a meeting for the impacted residents. I do not understand that rationale. It is clear that money associated with potential revenue for the city outweighs community input. This development, as stated in the developer's application, has a potential to provide between $6.7 million and $15.4 million in annual tax revenue for the city. It's hard to compete with that. Coupled with a favorable environment for the developers is the city's strategy to continue to develop the urban service area. If past practice is any indication of future outcomes, we are on a potentially misguided path. Look no further than the most recent developments in town, where the land, including valuable agricultural land, was leveled, homes were built within a few feet of each other. These developments and associated homes lack any aesthetics or character befitting our charming and historic community. Newberry is a wonderful place to live, and to that end, it will continue to draw more people. I understand that. Development will happen to accommodate new residents, and grow this town, but it must be done in a thoughtful and strategic way. Otherwise, we will quickly lose our small town, country living, and related benefits. I'll just close by just asking one question. Sorry if this is awkward, but just wondering if Commissioner Coleman will be voting on this, given his family is part of the application. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Other public comment? While you're considering waiting, recusing yourself from a vote, a commissioner is not allowed to recuse him or herself from a vote unless he or she stands to benefit financially from it. If it was in Newberry, you had to recuse yourself every time someone was related to you. No commissioner would ever be able to vote on anything because we're pretty much all related somewhere down the line. So if Commissioner Coleman stands to benefit from this deal, then he would have had to recuse himself before he even got it started. But since he is not part of this deal, then it would be inappropriate for him to recuse himself. Did you think of a comment, ma'am? Come on down.
Mr. Mayor, while we're on this subject, not to interrupt with the speaker, but you're exactly right. Since we're on this issue, the standard in the state of Florida is whether or not the matter will inure to your private gain. So that's step number one. Step number two is, as far as voting conflicts are concerned, if you're a relative, your voting conflict is related to if you're a father, mother, son, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister, father-in-law, mother-in-law, son-in-law, or daughter-in-law. Those are the definitions of a voting conflict for purposes of being a relative per Florida statute. My understanding is that Commissioner Coleman fits none of those.
Mayor and Commissioners, I appreciate your the opportunity to speak with you. I'm Martha Waltman, and I'm more or less surrounded by the proposed development, the land that you're considering. I'm up here basically to object because I'm very concerned about the overall loss of green space that it represents. The loss of habitat for our wildlife, loss of our privacy. I mean, we moved to the area, the land that we're on, so that we would be in the country because we used to live in Country Way, and there were 6 homes in it when I moved to Country Way, the original Country Way, and it got way too overcrowded. And you know, you talk about this being low density, but to me, low density would be going with the agricultural 1 house per 5 acres, or something like the Lakota development where 1 house per 4 acres sounds pretty reasonable. You know, I'm concerned about traffic. There's just numerous concerns, but I really hope that you will, if you approve this, which I'm pretty certain that, you know, you all are leaning towards approving the development. Please add the conditions, make sure that there is, the green space stays in there, that there's good buffers. You know, do everything you can to try and minimize the impact that's going to naturally occur to the residents that are already there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Other public comment? Don't be shy. Come on down.
I'm coming. I'm tired, but I'm coming. The proposed trailer park, what I'm estimating it's going to wind up trying to be, is going to swallow up my property. I'm in the center of Coleman's property.
What trailer park are you talking about?
Is it not going to be trailers out there?
No.
That's what is it going to be then?
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You say you're a comment for it, but then we'll go back and address.
People move to Newberry to be in the country, not in the city. I don't know how many dwellings that's going to be out there, but you can divide that by 2 automobiles. That's a lot to put on the Newberry already. I know it's still gonna be a few years ahead, but Newberry, even when y'all do put this road to one way down through Newberry, when y'all open up west of Newberry, development out here is gonna be just like north, south, and east of Newberry. It's gonna swallow it up. So y'all think about this, about what y'all gonna be doing in Newberry. That's it.
I'm sorry, can you say your name for the record? I apologize.
Don Willis. Yes.
Okay, other public comment? Here, no other public comment? Okay, we will close. And applicant, would you like to cross-examine anything about trailer parks you want to correct the record? I know why it's confusing, because it is part of that residential package, but
Yes, so there are, the proposed uses are single-family, either detached or attached units. So no trailer parks, the intention is for no modular homes, just traditional single-family houses. And that is it.
all right, thank you. Staff, did you have anything you want to cross-examine?
Mr. Mayor, no cross-examination. Did you want me to respond to any of the public comments?
I don't, I think we talked about those things, so if there was anything that you heard that you disagree with, you're welcome to, but.
Nope, none.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Members, decision-making body, you have questions for staff or the applicant or the participants? Commissioner Clark?
Be clarified, probably for, actually, Chris can answer it, probably just like this, so the phase one, the 260 homes is, the 260 dwellings. What's the density on those? Is that 6 point something
Yes, 657
per acre?
per acre, correct.
And to the west side?
3.5. But again, that is if the east side will be attached units. So if if the east side is constructed as single-family detached, that density number will go down because there are different design parameters between attached and detached units.
So, but in the four per 1 acre, it's not gonna go to that, or could it?
Well, the overall
density.
The overall density is 4 units per acre.
Okay.
So from a land use standpoint, it's compliant because it's the total acreage, but we wanted to divide it up to give a division because of County Road 337.
Okay, that's all I got.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
Will the connector road to 15th be constructed before construction begins?
It'll be part of phase one. And as John Paul mentioned, we're working through the developers agreement. That'll be fine-tuned when we come back with the final development plan of what responsibilities the developer will have at that time. But because 15th is part of phase one, it'll have to be constructed.
Now, he showed us a picture of this vernacular architecture.
Yes.
Where's that being proposed?
So that is the attached unit design or Florida vernacular. That would be on the east side of County Road 337. But again, that is just the code requirement for the architectural standards, not necessarily the architectural standards of the final product.
So are these like condos or?
They're townhomes.
Townhomes?
At least that's what John Paul showed for townhomes.
Okay. And that's the plan to build their townhome?
That is an option.
Okay. Commissioner Maison?
Oh,
No? Commissioner Coleman?
On the south side where those on the east side, south of that lot, where those four, are those lots gonna be, there's I guess from the old plat, there's roads that are in between it. Are they gonna are you gonna give those to the, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so those existing right-of-ways will be vacated, and based on the city's code and state statutes, half that right-of-way will be given to each property owner.
That's what I thought, okay.
Are we clear that those little fingers in between those, that's just city right of way?
Well,
Does the applicant have a right of way through there that he's willing to vacate, or is that just city?
It's platted right-of-way.
It's platted right of way.
Correct.
So who owns it?
It currently is owned by the landowner.
So it is owned by the applicant, but the applicant is willing to vacate it
Yes.
and give half of it to each neighbor.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. That puts that 18th at ease. I had a neighborhood meeting with them, sit there and had that conversation, so. Other questions, Commissioner Coleman? No? Commissioner Maison?
Yeah, I do have that little funky one up there that I was talking about. Like, how is that gonna, that little part that comes down to a triangle almost, is that gonna be like a donated portion? I can't.
You're referring to that little sliver of the property that's out?
This part right here.
Yeah, so that'll be just open space.
Oh, green space.
Green space.
So that's why
So
it's
it'll
like this right now.
yes, it'll be common area. So the HOA will maintain it. It'll most likely just stay natural.
That whole spot, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I got one more.
Commissioner Coleman?
So when you're coming off of Newberry Road and you're coming through there and at the, when that's mainly going to just be road through there, correct? Next to Mr. Willis is there?
Correct. So that the
So
pinch
it'll only
point.
be road.
Correct. The pinch point is just wide enough to get a city right away within there.
And then to the east of Mr. Willis will be green space.
That is correct. So on the screen, it looks like a dotted hatch.
Right,
But that's all common area, green space, open area.
Well, even to the west of Mr. Willis, is all that green space too, or is that?
Yes, to the southwest,
So completely around,
except for the roadway in the northwest corner.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, other questions for applicant or staff?
And then further condition for the staffs for the open space on the area on phase one on the east side of County Road 337. We are going to have stormwater basins and we'll have a buffer, so there will be open space. It's just not defined as natural open space. That'll be there in perpetuity.
Commissioner Maison?
Yeah. Okay, you did mention a crosswalk going over 337. Or is it gonna be because that's a deadly road, correct? Is there gonna be like a flashing, like whenever someone pushes to cross over, it's a flashing light to get the attention of cars?
So for that'll be coordinated with Alachua County, since that is a roadway. We will discuss with them the intention of the city to have some sort of crosswalk. We're not sure exactly what, that would be, depending on how the county views it. As well as the type of improvement. So right now, we're just assuming it'll be turn lanes north and south, but in going through the county process, they could require a roundabout or other items. But unfortunately, it's a county roadway, and they'll dictate if it's flashing beacons or something like that. But safety will be one of their concerns.
Commissioner Clark?
Chris, but the crosswalk only comes into play if something didn't happen in phase one with green space, correct?
That is
Like
the
if they
condition,
wanted-
but we are intending to provide mobility between
Between both phases?
Correct.
And this came up at the PNZ too, and we're well acquainted with what it takes to get a golf cart crossing across a state road, but 337 is a county road, right? And I know that we have a whole lot of folks that would like to be able to take their kids to school, and the elementary school is going to be right there. So I would really encourage, I hope the applicant has conversations with the county about how can we make that a golf cart crossing. So that, you know, I doubt that the numbers are going to warrant the flashing lights because we can't get that from FDOT for right in downtown Newberry. But signage, you know, one of those really elongated speed table kind of humps kind of a thing. I like the idea of a roundabout there because I think from 15th to 26th, it kind of slows everybody down as they're coming into urban Newberry, downtown Newberry. So I think that, you know, but again, those are all considerations for a different meeting tonight. But I just want to take the opportunity when you're having those conversations, don't forget how much Newberry loves golf carts.
Yes.
And being able to get across with golf carts, I can see a whole lot of parents. They're going to do it anyway. So let's design it and make it a safe way for them to do it.
So when we go through the permitting process with the county for the roadway, they'll, the three different parties, the applicant, the county, and the city will all be in discussions. So everybody's request will be raised at that point.
All right, and staff has heard that at the P&Z meetings and tonight, right? So we'll make that part of the it's not appropriate to make it as a future land use, but I just want to have the conversations and make sure we're all hearing those things. All right. Other questions of staff or the applicant? Commissioner Coleman.
What would happen to me as a commissioner if I do not vote on this?
Well, I'll let Scott answer it.
What kind of repercussions do I have, Mr. Attorney?
There's no repercussions to you if you feel that you should recuse yourself. You have that ability to do that. So if you decide that you wish to recuse, then file your Form 4, I think it is, with Judy. And you can do that if you so decide.
I haven't had any discussions. I just want to make that very clear on this. He's a cousin. No, not that.
So there's no voting conflict,
No.
and unless it inures to your private interest,
None.
then you don't have to recuse yourself. It's up to you. If you decide you want to recuse yourself, then you have the ability to do that.
And again, I would argue that it would be inappropriate to do so. Every single commissioner up here is going to have people that are related to us come in front of us. Yeah. So I think
I'm not sure.
I think the line has to be if you stand to make money yourself, right? Then you need to recuse yourself. But we had to make decisions about our churches that we go to. We got to make decisions about neighbors that we go to. I mean, that's part of living in a small town is that we've got to be able to look at each other and work these kinds of things out. So we're already down one commissioner. Even as Commissioner Martin was here, right? I think that needs to be the line. If you're a personal gain, then you recuse yourself. Any other questions about, and guys, that we're talking about future land use now, right? Next we'll talk about zoning. So future land use, the commission is being asked, do you see this area as an area where you see in the future for residential houses to be built, right? We'd be talking about zoning in the next one, but right now, is this an area that you see? And I see there's some white text there. What, Chris, what does that say? Oh, it's already where the residential low density is. Okay. I guess I have a question for staff, and this is, I know at this point we're in now, there's some options here, but Newberry really needs affordable housing, and those townhouses are more affordable, right? They're all levels, and everybody has a different definition of what counts as affordable housing. But that location on the east of 337, with this proximity to the schools, would be a great place to really encourage townhouses and that kind of density, starter families, those kinds of things. Is there anywhere in this process that's more appropriate for this commission to voice? And again, I don't know if these guys agree or not, but we have a lot of people come to us. I get requests all the time for rental units, those kinds of things, and it's just getting tough in Alachua County to find affordable housing. Educate me on when would be the most appropriate time to encourage that?
So affordable housing is a different matter than entry point for housing, and definitely as you get more denser, the entry point's a lot lower. And so those have what people would call attainable housing. Workforce housing is more attuned to meeting certain income requirements for affordable housing, and typically would have to have some sort of program set up. And there's a lot that goes into it as far as affordable housing.
I'm just talking about straight free market affordability,
Yeah.
right? Instead of having a house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you know, I'm attached. I've got more of like a townhouse kind of structure. I know those can get expensive too.
Yeah, you hit the head on the nail when you said free market. There's only so much control we have on that. But ultimately, when a developer looks at a property, the more units they can put on a property, the lower that they can offer the product for. And so that density does give into attainable housing for new families and low-income families. So.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Anybody come up with any other questions of that? If not, then I'm going to move to final arguments. Chris, you got a final argument? JP, would you like to make a final argument? Now that you just sat down, all right. Mr. Attorney, would you advise decision-making bodies applicable law, factual findings?
Competent and substantial evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. At this point, we'll enter into deliberations. Again, this is just future land use, right? This one, we'll talk about zoning next. Then there'll be another meeting to talk about plats, construction plans, all that kind of stuff at future meetings. So future land use, any deliberations? If there are no deliberations, we have 2 motions that we're being asked to make. And this agenda item 1 is approve conditions or deny ordinance 2022-46, which we read. And then we need a separate motion to authorize the land development regulations administrator. Can we put that back up on the screen? To the FDEO. Okay, let's deal with the first one. Does anyone make a, thank you. That's good. Make a motion. We have a motion from Commissioner Clark to approve on motion 1. Do I hear a second? I have a second from Commissioner Farnsworth. Any comments or questions? Motion on the floor from the dais. Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? This is future land use. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Motion 2, authorize the LDR administrator to transmit to FDEO. I have a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's going to take us to item 10, which is the zone. Yeah, we got both motions. All right. Scott, would you please read into the record ordinance 2022-47/LDR 22-10 into the record?
Happy to do so. This is an ordinance of the city of Newberry, Florida, relating to the rezoning of approximately 258.3 contiguous acres, more or less, pursuant to an application by the property owner of said acreage, amending the official zoning atlas of the city of Newberry land development regulations, providing for rezoning from the agricultural A and residential mixed single-family mobile home RSF/MH-2 zoning district to the planned residential development PRD zoning district of certain lands within the corporate limits of the city of Newberry, Florida. Tax parcel numbers 02514-000-000, 02508-002-000, 02522-000-000, 02523-001-000, 02523-001-001, 02538-004-001, 02538-004-002, 02538-006-000, 02538-006-002, and a portion of 01981-001-001, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is passed. Ordinance number 2022-47, LDR 22-10, upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
All right, summary?
So, a very brief one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. John Paul Perez again. The request before you is the rezoning for the property that we just heard the future land use on. The image before you is the general location. Here is the amalgamation of the properties that are being considered for rezoning. The current zoning of the properties is agricultural as well as residential mixed, which includes mobile home and detached single-family homes. The proposed is planned residential development. Again, this allows for more creative use of land, clustering, preservation of natural open spaces, etc. Here is the proposed preliminary development plan. Again, this is the preliminary development plan. We will get a final development plan in the future where we'll get all those juicy details that we would like to see. Phase 1, with the open space to be completed prior to the commencement of Phase 2. And then finally, Phase 3. Here are the part of Phase 1. This is not all of Phase 1. This is just the part of Phase 1 that's on the east side of County Road 337. Includes 260 attached and detached single-family units. Just an overview of the intent and purpose of the zoning district. The internal road network in red. And as well as the planning and residential development process. A lot of the process that I gave you during the land use is actually the zoning process. But because they're interconnected, kind of front-loaded it all so you had a good understanding as to all of the steps that the developer would need to go through in order to achieve the plan that they're looking for. So again, just major bullet points here. Preliminary plan, final plan, and then they actually have to move into constructions, and there's time constraints that I previously covered attached to each of those. The request right now that we're considering is the rezoning. And again, the development plan, which is attached to this rezoning, is still under consideration. We're still working through some of the more finer details. Again, we're at a very conceptual stage, so even the county, when we reached out to them, they said, let us know when you get closer to design. Right now, we don't have anything for you. School concurrency is done at plating, and the county needs to actually see the lot layouts and whatnot before they say, hey, we need additional right-of-way for sidewalks, we need this type of improvement. They did come back initially and say they need some turn lanes. So that's one thing that did come out of the development review engineer for Alachua County. With that, that completes my brief presentation. Staff finds the request consistent with the land development regulations and comprehensive plan. And at the pleasure of the board, you may approve with conditions, or deny the ordinance and zoning change. And since this is tied to the land use, this won't be back until the land use has successfully completed its routing through the state. So we'll bring them both back together, and we should have a more clear picture on the development agreement at that time.
Okay. Thank you, JP.
Thank you.
Does the applicant wish to make another presentation? Rest on the previous? Okay. Nobody. That takes us to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak to this agenda item? 3 minutes to do so. Come on down.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Paul Hornby. With respect to this development, I have three main issues from my perspective on State Road 26. The property buffers. I don't think a 10-foot buffer is currently written as sufficient unless it includes a solid fence to ensure reasonable privacy and security for the adjacent properties. 2, if you're serious about the claims of being able to walk to the downtown historic district, you need a sidewalk. If that's too big of a challenge with DOT, then investigate refurbishing the old railway track that parallels State Road 26 as a possible walking and biking trail. 3, you need to figure out some type of traffic mitigation for those driving westbound who will be turning left off State Road 26 into this development, especially at peak afternoon time. As it is now, there are accidents and near mishaps on that stretch of road on a weekly basis. I can attest to it. It should be incumbent on the developer in concert with city planning to sit down with DOT and agree on a plan. Furthermore, it should be the responsibility of the developer to post some kind of bond or collateral with DOT to ensure the necessary work gets done in advance of the construction. Lastly, I do have some environmental concerns related to the significant historical chemical contamination associated with the old Newberry dump and the crop dusting airstrip that reside on the proposed development. In 1989, the report from the Florida Department of Environmental Regulation documented excessive levels of toxaphene and lindane. Toxaphene, for those that you don't know, that replaced DDT back in the day and was subsequently banned in 1990. Lindane was banned in 2009. The Department of Environmental Regulation, they established 9 monitoring wells, 5 at the landfill and 4 at the airstrip, with a recommendation to continue monitoring well number 3 at the airstrip due to elevated chromium levels. So Chris, just respectfully, kind of disagree with this Universal Engineering Sciences supporting document that was part of the application. This is their 2022 report. The methodology, I just don't think this report was very thorough. The methodology included basically 2 things. They walked the property looking for surface features, whatever that means, and they re-examined 2 of the monitoring wells, one at the landfill and one at the airstrip. They did find elevated toxaphene levels at the monitoring well 7 at the airstrip. That's in their report. Another kind of questionable thing is the DEP noted that they should continue to look at well number 3. Why they didn't do that, I don't know. Instead, they looked at well number 7. Finally, they do have an interview section in their report where they're supposed to interview people. I'll just go down it real quick. Did they interview the current property owner? No. The past property owners? No. Key site manager? No. The occupant? No. Local government? No. The only person they interviewed was the user, Peter McDaniel, who's the potential buyer. The comment is he was unaware of any environmental concerns associated with the subject property. I don't know if that's the same Peter McDaniel that's for M3 development. Anyway, those are my concerns, and I would just say that maybe reconsider the homes on that airstrip site, just given that you're still finding levels of toxaphene. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Other public comment? Seeing none, we will go to, did the applicant like to cross-examine anything?
Yeah, so with the environmental study, there's a lot of parameters. That was at phase 1. They did perform a phase 2, which again, they found the same findings. Yes, some levels are elevated, but that does not mean that they are toxic, as they recommended in the report. And as far as the interview, they did interview the applicant, but the applicant obtained all the necessary documentation from the property owner, and so went through the questions that the environmentalist had and looked at past history. So environmental studies are done all the time like this. They gather historical data from DEP and other resources to compile their findings. And so they are a professional at determining environmental constraints. If there was really an issue, they would have noted it and made sure that the development followed those recommendations. So that's all we have.
Okay, thank you. Staff, did you have any? Did we make sure that all the interviews and everything that was supposed to happen happened? Do we have a role in that process?
Mr. Mayor, no, not necessarily. An environmental study was provided by them. We reviewed that. We can coordinate with the county. We had sent this petition over to them simply because they own the abutting right-of-way, as well as some of the residents that are in and around the property are Alachua County residents, not City of Newberry residents. Mark Brown with the Alachua County Environmental Protection Department, very helpful gentleman. I'll reach out to him, see if we can get some feedback on the environmental report that was provided, whether it's sufficient or not. Part of this next process, we're going to be routing it directly to Florida Department of Environmental Protection, so they'll have an opportunity to look at it directly. So.
In my mind, and after all these years, I'm still fuzzy. I thought there were different levels of environmental studies at different parts of the process. So right now, you're just doing a big overview. When by the time you get down to putting a plat in, there's a different requirement. Is that true, or do I have that fuzzy?
So in the code, and maybe Brian can correct me on this, the only additional study that I can recall from the code is a wildlife study that needs to be done to detect whether there's habitat there or not for a large-scale land use plan amendment. But additional level of environmental study, unless there's provocation for it, I'm not entirely sure that we would ask them to do another one. So based on the comments that are returned from the state and based on communications with the future conversations with the county and their environmental protection department, if there's reason for it, definitely we'll pursue that. Just personal experience with contaminated sites. Just golf courses themselves are considered contaminated sites because of all the arsenic that they use, and oftentimes those are converted into residential developments, and there's some remediation that happens. This one's a little bit different just because it has a very serious history with some very serious chemicals, where that's just more of a topical situation, but as warranted, treatments prescribed by the professionals. So, yeah, we will seek assistance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the making body, do you have questions? Commissioner Farnsworth.
So these properties will be attached to city water and sewer, correct?
Correct. Okay. Other questions? Commissioner Maison.
Yes. All right. So I have a couple of timeline questions. Maybe you guys can help me with. When is the build out for this again, John or Paul?
Let me defer to Chris Potts on that one. I'll give you a clear picture.
So depending on the economy, 10 to 12 years.
10 to 12 years?
Correct.
Okay. And the twin pairs, do we know what the build out was on that?
You got it? Mr. Mayor, we met with FDOT about 4 weeks ago. They indicated that their scheduled start date is 2027. They could, under certain circumstances, see it accelerated to as soon as 2025, but they don't see it starting any sooner than 2025. If it starts in 2027, we would expect an end date late 2028 or 2029.
When are we looking to, if this passes, when are we looking to break ground on this development?
So we have so that really, again, just depends on the economy. Right now, with the way things are shaping, breaking the ground is most likely going to push us to the limit of the 12-month mark to get the final development plan in. Again, that is the intention right now, is to kind of watch and see what the economy does before they push forward with it.
Yeah, my only concern, this is just me, is that congestion that we'll get off of Newberry Road and that dangerous road 337. I mean, there's going to be a roundabout, correct, at 266 that they'll be working on, even if it takes a year or two, right? And Newberry Road.
Yeah, the roundabout will be Newberry Road and 266th.
Yes.
337.
And then there is also in this on phase, I think it's phase 3 or 4, there's going to be a road that goes out to Newberry Road as well, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So that's just my concern. Not so much the 15th Ave, the east portion, kind of coming off of 337 being a daily road. That's just my concern. Those are my concerns.
Mr. Mayor, so a couple of things with DOT, we'll have to go through permitting with DOT, so whatever improvements that they will require, we will have to follow. Most likely, since they have plans for improvements to Newberry Road, we'll have to make sure that our roadway improvements coincide with those. And then 337, as I mentioned earlier, is the county. And so we'll make sure that they're looped in with the city to have discussions on what necessary improvements are required for that roadway.
Okay. Commissioner Clark? No? So, Chris, no conversations with the county as of yet about 337, because I know that at the P&Z, spent a lot of time talking about a lot of things, but the main focus is 337. We all know that's a poor road. It's not engineered up to modern day standards. It's a really high fatality rate. It's a little bit more south than what you're talking about. It's down by the curves, but have we had any conversations about, I know that's at a different stage, right?
Unfortunately, the county has informed us that they cannot provide any feedback or recommendations until construction plans are further down the road. They'd like to reserve their recommendations until that point. But they are informed that development is coming, but they will not pinpoint on it until an application is made for those roadway improvements.
So I guess my question now goes to staff then, because, at the P&Z meeting, we had a lot of comments about cart before the horse kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't see that as a valid criticism, because I think the cart and the horse are moving along on parallel tracks right now. But I think we unless we can pin down how this process works, then we do run the risk, right? I mean, I can't see putting that many houses on 337 as it is today, right? So how do we get a timeline from the county of when 337, at least from this development back to Newberry Road, is going to be fixed? Because I don't want to say, okay, yes, because we believe the county is going to fix 337, then 337 and county. I've believed that the county is going to fix 337 since 2014, when they unanimously voted to fix 337 to 2022. And I wait for those bulldozers every day. So help me understand this part of the process. I got an applicant who says, come back to me when you have construction plans. This commission has to make a decision right now. Residents are saying, have you driven down 337 lately?
Yeah.
How is this all going to congeal into a unified plan to where the houses will have a road that they can get out on?
So the final development plan will have a traffic study attached to it. That traffic study will give us a clearer picture of what the current traffic on 337 is and what the impacts of that traffic on 337 will be. As far as the maintenance of 337, we can reach out to the county to find out when it's scheduled for resurfacing. However, one thing that is clear is to all of us is that improvements are needed on 337 to support this development. That's one thing that the county has not alluded away from. There was mention of requirements of turn lanes, et cetera. So improvements will be made. What those improvements are finitely, we don't know yet. But there is warrant for additional study of that intersection of what will be 15th Ave and 337, and we already know that Newberry and 337 will be getting the roundabout. So one thing that was mentioned why there's signalization or roundabout at 15th Ave is it was given in a bullet point as a roundabout / signalization from the review engineer from the county. So we would obviously lean towards a roundabout if that was the desired, but some sort of traffic calming is obviously needed on that road.
I'm not quite sure I heard the answer in there. I'm
Okay.
sure it was in there. Sure it was in there. How can we assure that when their houses being built, the people and being sold, at the same time 337 is getting fixed. Not we build all the houses and then 5 years, 10 years, 20 years later we address. Is there a way for us to meld these two things together?
Yeah, well, I think that would require some sort of coordination with the county to ensure that.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, that as we grow and we share infrastructure and neighbors and residents, that those grow together. Concurrency is typically done through road impacts, but if we're collecting road impact fees from City of Newberry residents, we can't turn around and spend it on a county road.
And just for everyone in the room's edification, the city is building a regional wastewater facility down on 337. The county is looking to put a recycling center on the roughly the southern end of that first leg of 337 from 26 to the first curve. There's going to be a fire training facility that the county wants to put there. So we are actively engaged in conversations, at least about that first segment of 337 and getting that fixed. I don't have anything in writing, so conversations are conversations, but I believe in the nature of these conversations, and I believe that within the next 2 years, we are going to get that paved. We've got developers here to help, right? We've got the city is going to be putting in the environmental park, so there's a lot of entities there. But that does nothing to waylay residents who live on 337's concern about, well, we're going to talk about fixing it, and then you guys are going to put all these houses and we're still not fixing the road, right? I saw Brian mouth an answer to that question. Did you have something you wanted to?
I just need to get up and stretch my knee, actually.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Barry, I think, as John Paul alluded to, there will be a traffic study done. And based on that traffic study, the county is most likely to come back and say, okay, here are the improvements we would require before we would grant you access to 337. That may be in the form of up through phase 2, 3, whatever, there's capacity. I don't think it's really so much of a capacity issue right now as it is the condition of the road versus the quality of the road.
I guess that's why I'm confused by the traffic study. I don't need a traffic study.
Well, the traffic study will determine how much capacity can be put on that road currently, as it currently sits.
It's a dead road.
Well,
so that's my question. Like the road is already.
Capacity-wise, that's probably actually not the case. Condition-wise, absolutely. It's in poor shape, it's poorly maintained, and it's too narrow. There are definitely improvements. So the traffic study will determine how much, if any, of the development can go on the existing road as it is, or here's the improvements that would have to be made before the county would grant that connection. And so it's and to your point, because of all the development not related to this development that's going to go on that road, the likelihood is the county will have a plan shortly to improve that segment that would basically cover the needs for this development also to get back to Newberry Road and head east. And so that's the importance of the traffic study, is it'll help determine, the county will use it most likely to determine how much development from this development they would allow prior to having to make those additional improvements.
Okay. Mike, were you want to add anything did Brian nail it, or you got one more?
Brian did nail it. I think that the real wild card for all of this is that this development is just a small portion of proposed development along this roadway segment, the balance of which involves the city of Newberry and Alachua County. So I propose that an email be transmitted to County Manager Lieberman tomorrow that says, can we get your planning and your public works staff and our planning and public works staff along with the developer's engineer, and let's develop a preliminary plan. We may have to do more studies, but develop a preliminary plan of what we think the improvements are going to be required, so that we're not just grasping in the dark, so that we have a pretty good idea. I can't imagine that a room full of very qualified planners and engineers that we won't get to about 90% of the way of these are all the things that are going to be necessary.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. I would add to it a timeline. We're obviously on a timeline with the wastewater. They're on a timeline with some of their projects. And I think that we're working on about a 2-year timeline for some of these roadways where they'll be compelled to do it. And I guess that goes back to the question of, if you guys are 12 months out from breaking ground, then you're another year out from having significant build out. That timing may end up working out. But I want to have a better feel of what that's going to be very soon. Commissioner Mazon?
But isn't that speculations? That's if. What if they come, worst case scenario, no. Then we're gonna have more traffic just on 337 on a road that we've been trying to get fixed for years. We're putting more houses out there. So I kind of feel like we are putting the cart before the horse. Help me better understand if we're not doing that. I mean, I can see doing portions like the east side maybe, that 15th Ave go all the way through. I can see that phase being a way out, because you can got 15th Ave, and then you'll get some merging if the county is willing to work and merge onto that on 337. And then you even have 257. You have all these other roads that we've been working on in our budget. But the other, the west side, that's huge subdivision. That's huge development. And in my opinion, is actually going to cause more traffic coming down. I don't know. It's a road that we're saying, hey, this road needs to be worked on because it's a daily road. But then we're gonna add more traffic to it. And it's not so, in my opinion, it's not so much the traffic, because you can have 1 or 2 cars come by there and that's it. It don't have to be 300 cars, 400 cars. I'm sure everybody's ever driven down 337, and man, when a truck's, I drive down it, and it's kind of tight. So it doesn't really, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. Like if you got 150 versus 15 coming down that road, it's just a matter of time before it happens. So that's what I'm concerned with, is that putting that cart before the horse.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Okay.
So if you take out the city's plans and you take out the county's plans for improvements, and you just solely look at this development, the way it would work during the final development plan is a traffic study would be performed, and that in coordination with both the city and the county, the traffic study would highlight milestones of what improvements are required to handle a certain amount of traffic trips. So until those improvements are made, then the development would be stalled. So in coordination with the county, if you exclude all the other parts and pieces and solely look at this, the county would say, okay, well, phase 1 is only this number of trips, then this is the only improvements you have to do. But then if you're gonna add more trips to it, then you need to widen it or whatever you may be. But the county will highlight the milestones that must be met for the development, and that will be given to the city, so the city can have it and say, well, no, you haven't met this yet. So the construction of those improvements would go hand in hand with the construction of the development. So the development wouldn't be constructed and then a year later the roadway improvements would go. They would have to be constructed simultaneously, or at least the roadway would have to come first before the development.
So if I heard that correctly, he said that if we pass this tonight, zoning goes through, you do your study, it comes back, this development could be postponed until the actual roads are up to code. Is that what I just got?
That is correct. If whatever improvements are highlighted in the traffic study that the county requires are not met, then the development cannot go forward until those requirements are met.
I want to make sure I'm hearing it right too. Okay, so if you have the whole development in, and you say the total density of the development is going to be X, now the traffic study is based on that number X for the whole development. Then the county is going to come back and say, okay, because of all of that number of trips, you've got to do X, Y, and Z. And you can't do anything until X, Y, and Z is met. Because my concern, I'm concerned for the residents of 337. I'm also concerned for the applicant, because the first applicant is always asked to do everything, right?
Correct.
I think it would be unfair for you guys to have to pave all of 337 from yours back to Newberry Road, right? There's gonna be other developments that are gonna come in. 337 is a collector road. The county needs it to move people through, so they have a portion of this too, right? So I just wanna make sure that we're considering everybody's rights and everybody's perspective here. But if the county says, you can't build one, you have to improve that, widen it up, bike lanes from your development back to 26. You can't move anything, we'll build one house until that requirement's made.
So the way it would work is the traffic study would be broken down into phases or trip numbers. And so whenever the development would reach that traffic trip number, then it would trigger what necessary improvements are required.
So then that would allow Commissioner Maison's idea of like a phasing. We do it based on your phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Correct.
Because your traffic study would just be based on phase 1.
Well, no, the traffic study would be based on the totality, but then it would be identified in the phases. And then working with the county staff and the city staff, it would identify, based on trips, what improvements are required in phase 1, what improvements are required in phase 2. And then those would be basically a condition, just like in the developer's agreement, that must be met for phase 2, for example, to get improved. So in your example, if paving and widening County Road 337 from 15th to Newberry Road was required at phase 2, then that would have to go concurrent with the phase 2 development plans. Or phase 2 in essence could not be
So you could build out phase 1, but until that road was paved, phase 2 would be stalled out.
That is correct.
Okay. I think I've got it now. Are you done, Commissioner Farnsworth? Been waiting very patiently.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Farnsworth.
About time. So, I mean, basically what he's saying is, they could say, phase 1, you have turning lanes, phase 2, you have a roundabout, phase 3, you have to have a traffic light. But they don't have to put the traffic light in until they get to that phase. And that, we need to deal with that when it comes up. And I also want to know, does the city have any say-so in any kind of improvements to that area?
337?
Yep.
I mean, I think that what the manager is suggesting, I think it's a good idea, right? And I think that we could use this development as a means to leverage and get that conversation started is, let's say, look, we've got a development that's happening on the same road that you guys are trying to build, all the stuff that y'all are trying to build, right? We got residents who are concerned about this road. Let's sit down together and we could, I don't know that we can have this done by second reading, but we could say that's our goal, right? And let's have a conversation about what's in everybody's mind for 337, right? Because I think Commissioner Farnsworth is spot on, right? In many ways, and this is the frustration on behalf of the residents, what we're talking about, right, is 337, and those improvements, they come in at a later part of the process. But that doesn't help anybody feel better, knowing that there's gonna be a time to talk about that, it's just not this time, right? So, Mike, what do you think the chances of having, I know we're coming up on the holiday chance to have that meeting in the next 2-3 weeks?
Mr. Mayor, I've written the email, I haven't sent it. I asked that we meet by mid-November. I think the meeting happening before the second public hearing, if approved tonight, is pretty simple, because the second public hearing should be, some 60 to 75 days away. The land use was changed, and that's got to go to the state. So we usually get about a 60 to 75 day break between the first public hearing and the second one.
And with Christmas.
I don't know that we can have it resolved in 60 to 75 days, but I am extremely confident that we can have a meeting or two and be well along the way of what we think is going to happen by the time second public hearing rolls around.
Well, and again, I've got nothing in writing, guys, but I've met with every single county commissioner, and every single county commissioner is on the same page that we got to address at least that first section. Not about all 337 of the county line, but that first section, So I don't have anything in writing. I can't speak to that publicly, but I believe when we put the staff to it, it's going to be with the full force of the BOCC's blessing that we got to figure something else out. We also have a developer on the southern end that's headed west towards 337. So we have an opportunity to bring to the county some partners in fixing this section of 337. So we do have a 60-day window, right? This is first reading. We come back on second reading, so we can move forward tonight to get to that step. And hopefully we'd have a better idea when we get back. I mean, with the holiday seasons, it's going to be a little bit more delayed. It'll be January before we're back here again to talk about it. And hopefully by then, I don't know that we'll have a contract with the county, but I think we'll have a pretty good idea of their level of commitment.
I think most of the traffic's gonna be leaving on the road heading north to State Road 26 from this subdivision, and not necessarily on 337. I wouldn't want to go out on 337, turn left, then go up to State Road 26 and turn right. Instead, I'd just go to that one road heading north and turn right on 26. So,
But if you got kids.
I mean, if you got, well, I don't, but,
How do you know that?
well, it's true.
I mean, I take your
I was gonna say something real bad.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think, I just think that most people will be heading that way instead of going on 337. And they do have kids, they'll be going straight across 337. They won't be
JP.
actually traveling on it.
Can you put us back a map of the roadways there? Because I had a couple of questions that kind of go along with what Monty's talking about. Yeah, that was fine. Anyone that has the map
The
of
red.
roadway. Yeah, the red one. Can we see the red line? No, there it is, right there. I mean, I think that this is a strange, right? I mean, it's an odd shaped development on the west side, and that big rectangle underneath 15. We've had one slide that said this was agricultural, and one slide that said that was low density residential.
Actually, both, yeah. The future land use is residential low density. However, the zoning was never changed. That remains agricultural today.
And there's another development that just got future that's also on 15th, right? The one that kind of disappeared and came for us?
That's it.
That's the one you're talking about?
That's what you're talking about.
Okay, so that same applicant is on both sides?
Um,
337.
On the west side?
The west side.
Because
Yeah.
if this plan goes forward, we got one applicant that's gonna build 15th, and then another applicant that will come and take advantage of that?
Yeah.
So can we write a pioneering agreement that when that other development comes forward, there's gonna be a fair share process? Or that person's gonna have to do more of 337 or something?
Well, Mr. Mayor, our intent had been to keep quiet about the future development and let this developer pay for everything. No, I'm kidding. Every conversation we've had.
I've been in the county working before too, and that's why I didn't make me do it.
All the conversations we've had have contemplated that development being a partner, either upfront with cash or pioneering and letting this development, but they're so inconsistent in communicating with us. I suspect that getting them to pioneer it is not going to happen. I suspect our best case is for this development to get a pioneering agreement, that they'll be reimbursed if that development is approved and moves forward.
Okay, I mean, I back to my previous comment, and this is one of the reasons why we have a hard time getting the projects moved, because whoever goes first ends up having to bear such a disproportionately high cost. And then everybody comes out after that person's put in the road or ran all the water and sewer there, and they get, so I don't know that we can fix that tonight, but I want it on the record that we're at least thinking about it and how we're gonna make this fair, so that when that other development comes through, either the city's getting paid back. We're partnering on right now, and we're going to get the money back, or they're going to get the money back. Somehow, we're not creating a situation where we're incentivizing people to come get future land use and then disappear, wait for somebody else to come in, and then come and take advantage of it. I think we're working really hard to make sure everybody's paying a fair share and everybody's an equal partner. Those 337 and 15th were the comments, questions I had. So back to the dais, and we're in deliberations. Are we moving towards finalized deliberations? We got first reading, 60 to 75 days to go up to Tallahassee for the future land use. Second reading, it'll come back. Hopefully, we'll have a conversation with the county on 337 by then, and we're starting to put some pen to paper on what that's going to look like. Anybody got thoughts? If there are no more deliberations, questions, then I'll hear a motion. I have a motion for approval from Commissioner Farnsworth, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Roll call, Commissioner Coleman. Aye. Commissioner Clark. Aye. Commissioner Farnsworth. Aye. Commissioner Mazon.
I don't feel comfortable now.
Okay, motion passes 3-1 with Commissioner Mazon in dissent. At dissent. He'll get more information for a second reading. All right. We are still in quasi judicial? Yes. And now we do have a commissioner that needs to recuse himself. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Perfect time to go grab you a cup of coffee, right?
I did want to say something.
Oh.
When I was developing the county, okay, they get in the middle of the project, say, oh, we decided we want to put a roundabout. And we had to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
They also made us pay for the future pumps to be installed. Like, the city's been putting all these pumps in and all that.
Where you got
The
to
sewage pumps. We had to pay into that $50,000, so when the time comes, they can put a new pump in.
Yeah.
That's how they work. So.
We try to be a little different.
They'll make the county do something 337.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody.
Well, that's what we're gonna work
on. In some of their meetings, get something done.
Yeah. I agree. Thank you, sir. All right, we're still in quasi judicial. I'm gonna ask the attorney if he'll read ordinance 2022-26 into the record for us.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, vacating a portion of 50-foot public right-of-way known as Southwest 2nd Avenue, located between the CSX Railroad right-of-way and the Southwest 252 Street, as dedicated on the original plat, the Plat Book A, page 129, ACPR, within the corporate limits of the City of Newberry, Florida, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2022-26 upon its reading by title only.
Thank you, sir. Ex parte. Got any ex parte on this, Commissioner Coleman?
Zero.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
I asked Commissioner Clark where this area was located.
All right. But nothing in that conversation that would change your ability to?
No, sir.
All right, Commissioner Mazon? Okay, thank you. We've already sworn everybody in, ex parte. Yeah. All right. Brian, give us the overview. If the applicant's not present, then launch right into that.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As stated, this is ordinance 2022-26. It's an ordinance that would vacate a 50-foot section of right-of-way on Southwest 2nd Avenue. It's by Mark L. and Betty D. Clark, and joined by Larry Lund. The Clarks are the owners of the northern property. Mr. Lund is the owner of the southern property on the southern side. Already mentioned, it's to vacate a small section of Southwest 2nd Avenue. It's an undeveloped 50 feet, by the way. It's not a developed piece of right-of-way. No current or future improvement planned by the city. We checked with utilities, and they have no future plans for that section. especially since it terminates right at the CSX right-of-way. State law basically dictates that when you split a right-of-way, then you basically split it half and half with the adjacent property owners. And there is an existing overhead power line, utility pole in the existing right-of-way. And so when this is vacated, the city will maintain a public utilities easement over the right-of-way, over and under the right-of-way, actually. And so basically, either in advance or at the time when, in the future, when the lot is surveyed, then they will create, with the new survey, we'll also have a new easement created that just specifies that public utility easement maintained, it remains in perpetuity. I didn't create this slide. That's probably the most useless property location identifier ever. That little point there. Here's a closer up version. And so it's basically the eastern side is bounded by Southwest 256th Street, the western side by the CSX right-of-way. That just shows the owners.
So just south of that is another little easement that's part of the city also?
Just
What direction it's in.
down to 3rd Avenue?
Yeah.
There was. The city has already, actually, the map doesn't reflect it yet, but the city has already vacated that right-of-way in the past. That was Billy Belts and owned to the north, and the state owns to the south. Okay. So again, this displays property owners in the 50-50 split.
Mark L. Clark.
That should, and this just shows the where the electric utility line run, I mean, power pole, the above ground utility pole, which will remain in the right of way, even once it's vacated. Staff finds the request in compliance with the city's comprehensive plan and land development regulations, and that the granting of the vacation would not negatively impact public health, safety, or welfare. So,
Reserving all our utilities.
while reserving all of our utility easements, yes, sir. And so staff's recommendation is to approve ordinance 2022-26 on first reading.
Okay.
With staff's condition that the separate easement for the PUE will be drawn up, and it will not, it's in the ordinance that it will not become effective until that PUE is drawn up and recorded.
Okay. Do we have any presentation from the applicant? All right. I've not been contacted by anybody wishing to claim third-party intervener status, although I tried to drum one up, but that's going to take us to public comment. Any members of the public here like to talk to this? Seeing none, did you hear anything that you'd like to cross-examine applicant? All right. Member decision-making body, you got any questions? Mr. Farnsworth.
When the survey is done, who pays for the survey?
Mr. Mayor, that'll be the applicant as part of their surveying the properties.
I just want to make sure of that.
All right.
does.
Okay. Would you like to make a final argument? Would you like to make a final argument? Mr. Attorney, would you please advise decision-making bodies applicable law and factual findings?
Substantial and competent evidence, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We'll enter into deliberations. If there are no deliberations, I'll entertain a motion.
I will, that was a nice presentation, Mr. Clark. I'll move to motion to vacate that, property.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Motion from Commissioner Maison, a second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments, questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments, questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passed unanimously. Mr. Clark, you can become Commissioner Clark again. Thank you. And that's going to take us to gateway signage. Mr. Lowry, you don't know how long I've been waiting. I want to see this. I'm so excited.
Well, I hope that we can get this passed.
Go ahead. I'll take a picture and show it to you.
Armin Lowry, Project Manager for the City of Newberry, and here to discuss the gateway sign. This has been in discussion since June of '22, and perhaps before that time, before I was on board. And so we're going to move right along. Our recommended action tonight is to select a sign option and also approve a sign location. So we're going to move to that right now. These are the current gateway signs or monument signs that look like tombstones. Thank you so much. And we need to vacate those. As you may see, I'm not going to read all of this, but if you see that bullet point down at the bottom, it says plan to relocate the county to County Road 235 and also 337. That is what our plans are, but we want to move on beyond that because we want to move to this phase. Okay, this phase here, we're going to have three options tonight. We would like to see the dais make a decision so that we can move to the next phase, which be the phase of pre-construction. So this is your first option. This is option one, and I want you to take, you have this in your documents. Please pay close attention to it. And if you have any questions, I'm going to go to the next one. Here's the next one that we have for your viewing. And pay close attention to that one. I would also indicate tonight that in terms of saving money, if you notice that the established in 1895 is repeated, it's already on the, as we see, on the seal, so we could save money without having to repeat that. And so because those raised numbers are fairly expensive. Okay, and then this is option number 3. And it's, even though it says option 5, but it is option 3. And so again, I'm going to go back to the very first one and let you look at it again.
Mr. Lowry,
Yes.
are we
Yes, sir.
thinking, are we looking for continuity, whatever we pick is going to be put at all 4 directions? Are we just
Exactly.
thinking about Newberry Road headed westbound right
We're
now?
looking at having a similar or the same type of monument at all 4 locations, one located on 26 East, 26 West, 45, 27, 41, whatever you want to call it, north and south. And so same type at all locations.
All right.
Okay.
And I notice you're not putting a price tag next to option 1. You want our honest
I will-
opinion,
I
then
will-
you'll tell us how much they cost.
I will
Okay.
get to that. All right.
I'll
I
always
just want
tell
to
you,
give
it's
you
gonna be
guys
the
the
most
option
expensive one.
to look at those, and I can move forward down and
Go back for Commissioner Coleman missed the.
Okay.
So we're looking at 3 different options. There's number 1.
all right.
Clearly the best one. All right, go ahead. Number two.
Number 2.
Yeah, we skipped right over 2.
Let me go back.
And there's number 3.
Three.
That was not too bad.
That's number 2.
I can go
and
with
this-
number that.
And this is 3. And so, again, Commissioner Coleman, we want a decision as much as possible tonight about which one of these that we're going to choose or select so that we can move to the next phase.
And I would say, I mean, all of these are similar, sort of in vernacular style. I think the one westbound coming into Newberry, if we have to make choices about prices, I would go with something that's that as you're coming into town. Maybe on our north-south, we could go with something like option 2 or 3, which I'm sure are going to be a little bit less expensive. But as long as we keep the feel of them the same, I think that one coming eastbound, that sets the tone on our character, right?
You ready, Mr.
Mike?
Bowers?
I know you're ready,
I'm
but
ready. Let's vote.
now I just wanted to show you approximately where this is going to be located. I've already met with the engineers with FDOT. They've given us a preliminary approval, and so therefore it's going to be located just off of 202, 202nd Street.
It's coming back, Peggy.
And also 26 westbound. It'll be just south of the containment pond that's located just off 202.
Mr. Manager.
Mayor, probably some lack of clarity on my point for that. We have identified what we think is the best location for this and determined that it would require permitting from FDOT and took the liberty to meet with FDOT and they've indicated a willingness for us to locate the sign there.
Yes.
We're 3 miles east of the city limits official, which is 170th. This is at 202.
But 202 is the USA border.
Agreed, and
So it
that's
makes certain amount of
that's a big part of our rationale. But I don't want to give the commission impression that that we have selected this site to the city's detriment or against the city commission's wishes. If the city commission feels strongly that it needs to be somewhere different, we work for you guys. But we did identify what we thought was a really good site, and FDOT has indicated a willingness for us to have it there, which is a big plus, because otherwise we'll be negotiating with some private property owner to get it put on private property somewhere else.
Okay. Commissioner Farnsworth?
I'll go ahead and say I like number 1, and
Ain't nobody asked you yet.
that's the reason I jumped ahead of you. I like number 1. I wish that we could have them at the city limits, but if that's not possible, then I'm okay with wherever is feasible. I would like to see the mayor and the city commission pictures. Of course.
I thought there was going to be statues.
Oh, statues? That'd be good too.
But that idea got nixed. So, okay.
That's
So,
all.
do you guys want to hear from the public before we take a vote? Since we've got a couple of people here, and this is a stylistic, structural stuff.
Joy Glanzer, and I'm just here to give you some historic perspective. Those beautiful, as I heard them called, tombstones. Back in the early mid-90s, the Newberry Chamber of Commerce wanted to have these signs made. And I have to tell you that we were kind of broke. We didn't have any money. And it was at the same time when we had this wonderful new corporate neighbor come to town called Florida Rock. And they generously donated the cement to make them, and they even donated, brought them and put them up. So even though I agree with you, they need to be replaced, I just wanted the public to know that at the time it was a generous, donation by a good corporate neighbor with a good intention from the Newberry Chamber. And thank you for doing this. So those are beautiful. The first one, the big one. Thank you.
Well, the first one's got to be the most expensive.
Mr. Laverne, I'll take number 1, sir.
I got 1 for 2 for number 1, 3 for number 1.
And then 4.
Is it?
I got it.
All right.
I like number 1. I was going to ask on number 2, or like on number 2 and 3. Not that it matters. Even on number 1, is it just going to be the circle seal, or is that square going to be behind the seal?
You're saying number 1?
Oh, it's actually on all of them. But I didn't know if it's going to be that square. It's going to be a background, and the seal is going to be there.
It's going to be within
square.
Yes.
Okay, so now the question is, do I like number 1's price enough more to get past number 2 and number 3?
Lowry, if we got the backup on money, we'll shut the city down.
Well, couldn't we just put on number 1, City of Newberry, and not do the established, because he said that's already on the seal?
Yes.
I mean, I'm fine with that too. Joy's, if you could put up the old monuments, Joy's history lesson here is important because, our motto is we believe in Newberry. We have other mottos, embracing the past, enhancing the future. I was not trying to. Right. And I know you were talking about relocating these. I personally think that we should find a more historic place to put them if we want them. We could auction them off, but I don't think we should. I think we should do this plan north, south, east, west. I'm not sure that. I think. Yeah, I bet we can auction them off for a good cause, piece of Newberry history. But I think we need to move forward with this idea and the continuity. I personally think, because this commission just looked at the urban services area, so thinking about the urban services area as the places for them to be, that makes some sense to me. That kind of separates our green space from downtown, what we want to do. And maybe I bought you enough time for you to lay that price tag on us.
You're not ready.
I wouldn't say that we're not ready.
No, I was talking about tomorrow.
I think that if we move on this, we'll be under $40,000 in construction.
Per sign.
Per sign.
I think we've been budgeting for it for about 2 or 3 years, so we probably have the money sitting there waiting to go. All right, so we got number 1, 202. We need that in the form of a motion or just direction? Motion? All right, so I need a motion.
To approve.
Option number 1 at 202.
Option number 1 at 202.
I got a motion from Commissioner Clark, second from Commissioner Maison. Comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Commissioner Farnsworth?
I think we should keep this wording as it is.
Established?
Yeah.
I don't want to quibble over.
Or move it over to the other side to make it a little more
You
balanced.
catching that,
Unified.
Pastor Lowry? All right. We got a head nod in agreement. Keep the established by, and maybe look at moving it over just to see if that creates a balance.
I mean, that's pretty sharp.
I like
Yeah.
it, yeah.
I'll give you, it's pretty sharp.
Okay,
I like it.
all right.
And another history lesson is we had the first signs coming into Newberry that I can recall were out about at Ross's property out there, and they were they were kind of a billboard style, but they were not wood or anything. They were brick or block, and then they had the mural painted onto the block, and it was like they had the watermelon and everything painted on there. It was really, really nice.
Oh, thank you.
No, I was here. I mean, I remember this from when I was a real kid.
All
You
right.
remember Judy?
So we have
See,
a.
Remember Judy, remember?
I'm not gonna forget about you, Miss Peggy. I'm not gonna forget about you. Right. We've got a motion on the floor, so I can go to public comment as soon as Commissioner Farnsworth stops with the history lesson. All right? Any other comments from the dais? Miss Peggy's getting anxious on me now. Mark, Monty, any other questions? Miss Peggy, she's out there waving at me, flagging me down. Okay, Miss Peggy, come on down.
And I'm green. Peggy Loy. And this is not my idea, but I think it's a really good idea that these concrete things that Joy was talking about were gift from Florida Rock. Is that right? Florida Rock? From Florida Rock. That just as a gesture of thanks, that they be offered to them first to see what they would like to have done with them, and they'll probably not really want them, but then you can do what you want to do it. But it seems like it would be a good gesture to offer them back to them since they paid for them.
They're not, but I'll text the manager of Argos.
There you go.
And I'll say, hey, do you want these signs?
Okie dokie.
And I'll let you know what he says. Well, maybe I'll wait till the morning. It's after 10 o'clock. That'd be rude. Okay. Well, you're in the heart of Newberry at that point, right? Okay. Any other public comment? Great presentation. Very exciting. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. What's the timeline, project manager? When do we? All right.
Mr. Mayor, it is funded in this year's budget.
So next week, it'll be built.
We have the drawing that you saw. Those haven't been transformed into construction drawings. That
Right.
won't be such an arduous process, but it'll take a little time for our architect to make a set of
Just
construction drawings.
faster than the fire station sign.
Faster
right?
than the fire station sign, absolutely.
And then I was driving into Alachua. Hang on, fellas, we got a whole other meeting after this one. Yeah, you forgot, you didn't see it. I was driving into Alachua, and Alachua has a very nice sign,
Yes, sir.
not as nice
Thank
as
you.
that, but it's tucked back in the trees,
Agreed.
and you can't see it, right?
Well,
we won't make that mistake.
Mr. Mayor, consider the town that constructed. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, all right. I was just kidding about the other meeting, but we're getting all rowdy, so I'm trying to make you depressed. We do have the remaining 22 city commission meeting schedule, and I think we have a lot, so I think we need to meet every single week leading up to Christmas.
Real good. I'll be in Belize next week.
Belize? Nobody goes to Belize at Christmas?
Next week, I said next week.
Oh, next week.
Saturday from now.
All right. Mr. Manager, what do you got a suggestion?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, around the holiday season, we always try to figure a way that we won't have that second meeting in December if there's no city business. And But I've learned, I remember every year now that no, we're gonna end up approving our fiscal year 21 budget at that meeting, because we're given 60 days by the state to get it submitted, and that's the last meeting before the 60-day deadline. So staff understands that we need to have both meetings in November, because we will have business in late November. And then December, we need the first meeting. So really, the only consideration for the commission is whether they would like to have the second meeting in December, which I believe is December 26th.
26.
You know, staff can always adjust any business items that are time sensitive to either be on the 12th, December 12th meeting, or the first meeting in January. It's a slow time of year. It's pretty tough for us to keep to get agenda items put together and published. So if the commission is considering the December meeting schedule, staff's recommendation is that we hold the first meeting in December and that the city commission cancel the second meeting in December.
I got a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions on the motion on the floor from the dais? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Don't go anywhere, Mike. On the November 28th meeting, you know, we send out the agendas on Wednesday, which is the day before Thanksgiving. So what is do we have any considerations for that? Would we rather have that on the 21st before Thanksgiving and move that, or is that fine for staff? I'm thinking most staff is going to be off on the 23rd, but they're going to have to be getting an agenda together, so they're not really going to be off, right? So,
Mr. Mayor, I anticipate, if you'll recall from previous years, it's usually a one-item agenda or something that cropped up so last second, you know, some agreement that had to be exactly
or something like that.
So, Mr. Mayor, I think that we'd prefer to have the meeting the Monday after Thanksgiving, and if we need to prepare the agenda and get it out on Monday or Tuesday the week of Thanksgiving, we will.
Okay.
Not so many agenda items that we can't do that.
I mean, it is possible for us to have a Tuesday meeting on the 29th if having that extra day. Just talk to your department heads, find out what they think about it.
We have a meeting tomorrow at 8:30, and we'll have that discussion.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Comments, Commissioner Coleman? I'm sorry. I'm just jumping right over it. It's not written on this one, so I'm just skipping all around. Mr. Manager first.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll be out of the office Wednesday and Thursday. Have one of just a few procedures to get back to a full slate of health. So I'll have my procedure on Wednesday, be available Wednesday evening, and all day Thursday. Just won't be in the office, be working from home. Mr. Mayor, we're closing our city offices on Thursday, November. Somebody tell me when. Is it the 10th?
Veterans Day.
Veterans Day. It's usually the 11th, which is a Friday, so city offices are going to be closed on Thursday, November the 10th.
That's Frank Ward's birthday. We should be working.
I got all the way to November and then didn't write down the actual day. And then I was just lost. So, but city offices will be closed on November the 10th, Thursday. Wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. The reason I'm announcing it in late October is there's not another city commission meeting between tonight and that date. Mr. Mayor, just want to give kudos or props to Tammy in customer service. She's been asked by the Florida Municipal Electric Association to present on our AMI deployment, which is being noticed by every utility in the state of Florida for how well it is rolled out and the public's reception of our AMI system. So Tammy is going to be presenting that to all 34 of the public utilities in the state of Florida and touting it for the project success that it is. Our team has worked extremely hard on that, and I'm really proud. It has exceeded my expectations, and I had super high expectations. And Mr. Mayor, we got an email today confirming that Beaver's population estimates for 2022 in Newberry are just a tick over 8,000. We've crossed the 8,000 mark. We're at 8,066 will be our official population for 2022. That's up 382 residents from 2021. Continues the 5% growth rate that has been a trend. We've averaged 5% going back into the 90s. It shows some amazing consistency. It is the highest growth rate in the county of all the different organizations, cities, and Alachua County, percentage-wise. But, you know, for those that assert that we're out of control, I think that whenever you have planned for infrastructure and planned for growth the way this commission has, and you've demonstrated for 30 years that you can sustain it, that I think at that point you just have to classify it as good growth. But the number to keep in mind is it looks like we're growing between 350 and 400 people a year. And at this rate, we're 6 years away from topping 10,000. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes my comments.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman. Commissioner Clark.
God bless America.
All right. Once again, Monty, now you heard how it's supposed to be said. Commissioner Farnsworth, you got any comments?
Yes, I didn't know what day we're celebrating Halloween.
December 25th. Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. And the timing is set by each individual neighborhood. They kind of work that out, but they're all usually around dusk.
I want to thank the staff for this here. This was a huge help tonight as far as being able to see what's actually occurring. I was wondering if there's a possibility that I could get that on a Thursday so I can have time to review it over the weekend.
Can we deliver that to Commissioner Farnsworth's house?
Yeah, we can deliver it better.
I used to get them like that.
Yeah.
We will provide them earlier. I would tell you that, you know, normally we are getting our agenda items finished. Our goal is to get the agendas out on Wednesday by 5 o'clock. We often miss that, but we are almost always getting them out by Thursday, 5 o'clock. But the presentations are usually being worked on Monday. So our deadline for them up until this request has been Monday at noon. Get them into Ada to get loaded up into what she printed out for you. So it'll be a bigger stretch, and it may be that not every presentation is in there, but I will certainly ask staff to try to get those presentations prepared prior to going home for the weekend.
What is it that you found most helpful? Because,
Like the maps.
Pictures.
right. And that's what the staff's putting into the presentation, or is that part of the backup material? Because it seems like there's sort of two categories of information that's coming in.
Well, there's rarely anything in the presentations that isn't in the backup. It's just how we present it. And probably when we put them into the slide presentation, it's easier to follow than just giving you a copy of the applicant's package to us, which could be as random could be. But there shouldn't be anything in our slide deck that is not in the applicant's application. That's the source of our information. But so, you know, there is some effort in how we get it compiled. Like I said, it's part of the Thursday after we finish agenda items and the all-day Monday scramble to make sure we have compelling presentations for the commission so that you can follow, and we will get them transmitted to the commission as soon as we can.
And Monty, it doesn't need to be delivered to you. Get on your little bicycle and ride on up here. It ain't gonna hurt you a bit.
I mean,
I'll get you one.
If we convert them, Mr. Mayor.
Clerk lives right around the corner, so.
If we convert them to PDF, is that an acceptable format, or do you, okay. Do you prefer the hard copy? Or do you?
I prefer a hard copy.
Okay.
I do not. Y'all don't have to print it off for me. I was looking at it online. Y'all print it off up here for me all the time. But I have to stay focused on.
I mean, I used to get
Yeah.
them.
Okay.
I mean, they were great.
So you got three
I'm
people
that
that
guy
want a
too.
hard copy.
All right.
One that you're good. You want a hard copy, Commissioner Coleman, or you're good?
I like
Okay, so
hard copies.
4, right? And you can just
Correct.
y'all already emailed it to me. So,
You can write notes
but,
on them, Mr. Martin, say that.
yeah, Commissioner, he doesn't want one either. Does that conclude your comments, Commissioner Farnsworth? Yes, sir. Commissioner Maison?
It's about time. I wanted to use Mark Clark's word. I want a caveat to what he was saying. Our staff is amazing. I do thank them. I thank all our staff. I see them out there working when I'm working, and they work hard. And I want to make that clear. Our staff is amazing, and our staff's employees are amazing, or the city's employees are amazing, and they work hard every day. The seniors craft and arts on Wednesdays at 4. They've been amazing. I was told to mention that. The going with the Halloween deal. I was told by Francis and the committee that they appreciate all the entries and community involvement. And they've been, and I don't know how many of you guys have driven down Newberry Road and seen all the different types of scarecrows. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to drive down there. Yes, they're entertaining. And I was also told to say that on Saturday, this Saturday coming up at 11 o'clock, we're going to announce the winner of the Scarecrow Row contest. And also
straight to my house, or do I got to meet him somewhere?
at the farmer's market. Thank you very much, Miss Peggy. At the farmer's market. And they're working on the Christmas gingerbread village. I got a couple videos of, yeah, you guys see, yeah. It's looking good, isn't it? It is. And that does not conclude my comments. I still have one. Monty. This is a dad joke, okay? This is a dad joke. How do you catch a unique animal? Unique. Unique up on it. Hang on, I'm not done yet. Very good. How do you catch and tame a unique animal? Come on, Mike.
I don't do puns very well.
The tame way. Unique up on it. That concludes my
He killed at the chamber banquet, right? He told him he had everybody rolling on the floor in laughter, but
they were actually.
Which is the first thing I wanted to just express my gratitude to the Newberry Area Chamber. The banquet was terrific. I'm not sure when they're going to publish the list of all the businesses that won. There was probably about 12 awards that went out that night. Linda Woodcock was Citizen of the Year. I think RPM was Best Retail Business. Newberry Animal Hospital was Friendliest Business, Service Business. But they'll publish that list. But it was well attended. Everybody had a great time, and the chamber really just has come alive here in the past 6 months or so and is really doing a whole lot. And not to leave out Main Street. Main Street is decorating the scarecrows that Commissioner Maison was talking about, and the Christmas decorations this year are going to just be amazing. I've seen the videos, I've seen the plans, I've seen what they're trying to do. So every single Saturday between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there's going to be something going on. I'd love to see the commissioners there judging the gingerbread houses and all the stuff that they're going to be doing. This Sunday, there is a fundraiser at Countryway Town Center to raise money for Brent Sargent in his fight against leukemia. So it's October 30th from 4:30 to 7, Countryway Town Square. There's going to be a gun raffle, cornhole competition, pumpkin carving, apple bobbing. They are auction off a bunch of cakes. So 4:30 to 7 at the Countryway. Go out, grab some Stonehouse for dinner, bob for some apples, those kinds of things. That's this Sunday. the Vets Day celebration. Keynote speaker this year is Commissioner Tony Clark. Commissioner Mark Clark is going to be the keynote speaker. That happens in the morning. If you look in your emails, I'm sure you've all got a personal invitation from Oakview Middle School. They do a fantastic job, and they love it when the local boys show up. So if you can be there, there's breakfast. It's a morning event. There's a little bit of breakfast. Then we'll go out. We'll hear Mark's speech.
Yeah, very eloquent, I'm sure.
It's going to be fantastic. I'm just hoping he doesn't scare all the little 8th graders away. The debris come out, right? So I appreciate him for doing that. On November 13th, Newberry is welcoming the Bikers on Parade. City's partnering with them. We're going to have the big flag at Countryway Town Center. It's going to be coming. All the bikers will go under it. We're going to be raising money, so I know they'd love for you guys to come out there. That's November 13th. So November 10th, Oakview Vets celebration. November 13th is the Bikers on Parade. That's the Sunday, right? They're going to be coming in. And then I think we'll meet again, but don't forget November 19th is the Downtown Fall Festival and the rodeo all on that day. We'll get the big flag out again. And November 1st is my last date, I promise. November 1st, here at 1906, the Newberry Opioid Task Force will be holding, I think it's the 3rd, maybe our 4th Breaking the Silence event. One of the things that the task force has realized is that there's a stigma around addiction, and people don't feel like they can talk openly about it. People feel like it's something they have to hide, keep as a secret, and deal with inside the family, and that becomes destructive. So we're trying to break the silence, bring people out that can share their story. November the 1st is going to be Casey Hamilton. So Casey Hamilton, local hometown hero, SRO at the elementary school for a long time, worked for the school board as the chief of police for the school board. And so he's going to be sharing his stories, the things that he's learned. So November 1st, 6 o'clock? 6 o'clock, 1906. I know the task force would love to see you guys there and support. It's 5 minutes, right? Casey's going to talk 5 minutes, maybe 6, right? And then it'll be just socializing, meeting, talking, hearing about what we're doing. 6 o'clock, 1906. We've got the whole side, the east side there. He's going to shut that down for us. So come, have dinner, listen, right? Clap, all that good stuff. That concludes my comments, all my dates. Who? Oh, I'm sorry, I should say that. So that is the, what's it called? It's the
The Merle.
Merle.
Next to Hitchcock's?
Yeah, but it's Merle Norman. Merle Norman. This is a cool idea.
Yep.
It's the Saturday before Halloween. So she's going to transform her shop there into like a little fantasy Halloween, right? So the kids can come in. She would love for any businesses. We know that Halloween's on a Monday this year. That's tough for the school kids. They got to go to school on Monday. They got to go to school on Tuesday. So for parents that are going to be looking for opportunities on Saturday night, she's going to open it up. If there's anybody else that wants to set up on the sidewalk around her and hand out candy, kind of make it a little bit of a bigger event, they'll be welcome to do that. And I think it's at the Georgia game that day. So everybody be in their right state of mind to go out Saturday night, right? Okay, that's good, right? That'll be a lot of fun. Any other comments from the dais? Public comment? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Can't wait to see